Chapter 621, Five Colors Heavenly Domain. Is this the realm of the Heavenly Domain? After a long while, Tang Huan finally came back to reality. In the Danshan, the Five Colors Spiritual Pills was still the same Five Colors Spiritual Pills, but in reality, it had undergone a tremendous change. In the past, the Five Colors Spiritual Pills was like a solid ball, but now, the Five Colors Spiritual Pills was like a hollow ball. Within the elixir, there was actually a tiny space. Within that space, the elementary form of Taikai could actually be seen. This was obviously due to the Great Harmony Heavenly Classics that was being practiced. Not only that, the current Five Colors Spiritual Pills had an incomparably close connection with his soul. In between Tang Huan's mind instructs, in a second, the Five Colors Spiritual Pills was frantically revolving. Whoosh! Instantly, an incomparably terrifying wave of Five Colors odorous surged out from the spirit palette, with their body acting as the center and spreading out in all directions. In an instant, they had congealed into a gigantic round cover S, covering an area of 100 meters, which were extremely colorful, dazzling and enchanting. Heavenly Domain. Tang Huan suddenly opened his eyes. Compared to the half-finished state the fake Heavenly Domain was in before, the one he was using now was already extremely different. Even though the fake Heavenly Domain from before had solidified, its essence was still its force. And the current Heavenly Domain, even though it was also formed from the force of nature, had fused with Tang Huan's power of the five elements. Tang Huan's mind had followed the expansion of the Heavenly Domain to every corner of the area. Within this region, Tang Huan's perception ability increased explosively once again. At this time, even the slightest of movements could not escape Tang Huan's senses. Even though there was still a gap between the first stage of Heavenly Domain and the little white rabbit, Zhao Budian was still able to distinguish its light and steady heartbeat and breathing sounds. In the eyes of the current Tang Huan, the little white rabbit, who was a strong Heavenly Domain, seemed to no longer be as invincible as before. This was the feeling of a true ruler. He had originally thought that he would have to fight with the little white rabbit for a few more rounds before he could find an opportunity to step into the Heavenly Domain. However, the little white rabbit and Zhao Budian's fruit, which they brought back, allowed him to successfully break through. This plan really couldn't keep up with the changes. Tang Hua took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and with a slight thought, a position above the Five Colors Heavenly Domain began to fluctuate rapidly, and the extremely powerful energy immediately converged towards the center of the fluctuation. Not long later, another location in Heavenly Domain started to fluctuate intensely. This was the method the pterosaur used to control the Heavenly Domain when fighting him. It could be used to delay the opponent's attack. This method did not have any profound techniques. The strong perception ability and mind allowed Tang Hua to easily execute it. In the distance, the pterosaur was dumbstruck. Ever since it was able to activate the Heavenly Domain, it had experienced repeated failures and attempts. It took it a whole few years to finally use this method successfully, but this damned bastard was able to skillfully use this method right after he reached Heavenly Domain. Being proficient in techniques was only one of them. The most frightening thing was that the pressure exuded by this bastard's Heavenly Domain was simply too frightening. Even though it was within the boundaries of the Five Colors Heavenly Domain, it could still feel a terrifying pressure that made even its heart tremble. If he were to fight against this fellow now, pterosaur couldn't help but shiver. Pang Shao's body was curled up into a ball, and his pair of huge eyes revealed dense fear. Yeah, yeah. In front of Tang Huan, after a brief moment of shock, Zhao Budian couldn't help but shout out loud. Although it was unclear what the change in Tang Huan meant, it knew that Tang Huan's strength had increased by a huge amount. It was enough to understand this point. After the initial shock, the little white rabbit's bright red eyes revealed a hint of joy. Then, its entire body began to stir. Goo! After a moment, the little white rabbit suddenly opened its mouth and let out an earth-shaking cry, shaking the sky like a thunderclap. Tang Huan woke up from his stupor and looked towards the source of the voice. Seeing the little white rabbit eager to give it a try, Tang Huan immediately understood its meaning. Laughing loudly, Tang Huan sprung up, the fighting intent in his chest rising. "All right, let's fight again." Goo. Seeing that, the little white rabbit was even more excited. The heavenly domain slightly trembled, causing Zhao Budian's body to be squeezed out, while it himself dropped to the ground. Almost at the same time, Tang Huan's 5 colors heavenly domain disappeared and the huge pressure instantly dissipated. "Zhao Budian, go to a place a bit further away." Yeah. Zhao Budian understood what Tang Huan meant, and immediately flapped his 3 pairs of wings, flying off into the distance. In the blink of an eye, he was already hundreds of meters away. The pterosaur, who was already very far away, also hurriedly retreated, afraid that he would be affected by the battle between the two of them. "Begin!" Tang Huan bellowed. A dark red light flashed and the Conqueror's spear appeared in his hand. Following that, the 5 colors heavenly domain erupted like a volcano as it erupted from his body again, enveloping a 100-meter radius around it. This area was immediately filled with a tyrannical pressure. "Goo!" The little white rabbit let out a loud cry as its body turned into a white light and shot towards Tang Huan at an astonishing speed. The moment it kicked up, countless dust and sand on the ground were scattered about by Tang Huan's rapidly surging power of the heavenly domain. As Tang Huan thought about it, the 5 colors heavenly domain started to fluctuate violently and in an instant, he couldn't help but reveal a hint of surprise and joy. Last time, when he fought with the little white rabbit, the semi-finished heavenly domain only increased Tang Huan's perception ability, and had almost no effect on the little white rabbit. Within the range of Tang Huan's half-finished heavenly domain, the little white rabbit was still moving freely. But now, Tang Huan could clearly capture the little white rabbit's trajectory of movement. With a thought, the energy that rippled out from all directions even decreased the little white rabbit's speed of teleportation. Kai. Tang Huan moved both his hands, and the Conqueror's spear thrusted out. On the long spear, a red glow exploded outwards, and at the tip of the faintly trembling spear, a blazing heat swirled out, instantly turning into an exceptionally blazing fiery storm, as if it wanted to melt the surrounding space. Although it was just a normal spear strike, no matter how fast the spear was shot, or how strong the strength chi and might it contained, they all had a qualitative leap compared to before. Wherever the spear passed, sharp whistling sounds resonated outwards, seemingly congealing into reality that tore apart the space. On the opposite side, the little white rabbit stretched out her body and stomped her leg. Heavenly domain seemed to have transformed into a sharp awl which carried a shocking amount of energy as it smashed into Tang Huan's Conqueror's spear. With a deafening explosion, the strength chi began to wreak havoc as 2 figures shot out at the same time. Chapter 622, Zhai. This space at the bottom of the sea was quite vast, covering an area of several thousand miles. At the western border of the space, a giant whirlpool was spinning rapidly. As the night gradually passed, the sky became brighter and brighter. Whoosh, whiz. In the air above the lush forest, 2 figures were flying over at a lightning speed. In an instant, they had already landed in front of the whirlpool. One of them was a slender young man around the age of 20. He had a handsome face and had a cute little blue beast sitting on his shoulder. The other person was a young woman wearing red clothes. Her figure was tall and slim, and she had a curvy figure. In her hands, she was holding something that looked like a spinning top. These 2 people were precisely Tang Huan and Feng Ming. The moment they landed, the wings on their backs receded. Right now, it had been half a month since Tang Huan had stepped into the heavenly domain. In this half-month, Tang Huan and the little white rabbit practically battled each other every day. After every fight, Tang Huan's control over the heavenly domain would improve. Although his abilities in this area could not be compared with the little white rabbit, he had made tremendous progress compared to the beginning. Tang Huan had very little knowledge about the realm of heavenly domain. Based on the recent days of sparring with the little white rabbit, Tang Huan reckoned that the realm of the heavenly domain should be at a few levels, and he had just stepped into the initial stages of the heavenly domain. As for the little white rabbit's current realm, it was 1 level higher than his. As long as Tang Huan activated it, the heavenly domain would expand to the limits, enveloping an area of around 100 meters. He tried to narrow the range of the heavenly domain, but unfortunately, he could not succeed even once. However, The little white rabbit was different. When Tang Huan first saw how small the little white rabbit's heavenly domain was, he thought that it was naturally so. Only a few days ago did he find out that it was the result of the little white rabbit's control. Under his request, the little white rabbit gave Tang Huan a demonstration once, and actually expanded the range of the heavenly domain to cover a radius of 200 to 300 meters. Afterwards, the little white rabbit slowly reduced the heavenly domain's circumference to a radius of about 1 meter. The heavenly domain was compressed, but the power of the heavenly domain was increased instead of decreased. This made Tang Huan understand that the smaller the heavenly domain shrank, the more concentrated the energy would be. The little white rabbit's control over the heavenly domain had already reached the point where it could send and receive things at will. Tang Huan was still rather far from such a realm. Tang Huan didn't know anything about the way of cultivation in the future, but from looking at the little white rabbit, he could see the direction that he needed to work hard in the future. Furthermore, Tang Huan had not yet reached the level of a little white rabbit in the heavenly domain. In his first battle with the little white rabbit, Tang Huan was basically in a passive state receiving beatings. But in the past few days, relying on the Danshan's 9 Yang Divine Furnace, 5 colors spiritual pills, and the powerful Sun Spirit body, Tang Huan and the little white rabbit were on par with each other. Unfortunately, the little white rabbit did not seem to plan to leave this underwater world. This time, the abduction could be considered a failure. After the battle last night, Tang Huan bade farewell to the little white rabbit. He had once invited the little white rabbit to accompany him today, but it had not agreed to it. He had originally wanted Zhao Budian and the little white rabbit to be his companions, but now, they matched each other's strengths. One was an extremely strong perception ability, and the other one had astonishing combat prowess. Of course, this kind of thing was entirely dependent on its own will. Forget about Tang Huan being unable to force the little white rabbit, even if Tang Huan was stronger than it. If it itself was unwilling, Tang Huan would still not force it. Yeah, Zhao Budian turned his head to look, and unwillingly called out, "Don't be so reluctant. If we have the chance in the future, we can come here and visit it." Tang Huan patted Zhao Budian's head and said softly. He also knew that after leaving the island world, he would not have the chance to come back. Although he was already in the heavenly domain and the old man was inside the space aircraft, Tang Huan didn't dare to make a move. He was prepared to help his master break free from the shackles in his soul after his cultivation was stable and then treat the old fatty's injuries before taking care of Fen Tian. Once these things were done, Tang Huan would enter the Lingzhou Ancient Road. If he was successful in reaching Forging God Great World, Tang Huan was afraid that he would never be able to return to this little world ever again. Even if he did, it would be unknown how many years later it would be. Yeah, Zhao Budian obviously knew that Tang Huan was trying to console him, and snorted depressingly. Seeing it in such a state, both Tang Huan and Feng Ming laughed helplessly. The little guy only had 2 friends of his own, one was a rainbow spirit mouse, and should still be staying in Holy Spirit Continent with Mu Yan. It had not seen him for a long time, and the other one was the flying jade hare. Tang Huan pinched Zhao Budian's mouth. All right, let's go back and check on the little white rabbit first before we go. Okay? Yeah. Zhao Budian's eyes lit up as he nodded excitedly. Tang Huan was speechless. He and Feng Ming looked at each other and the wings on his back appeared. Just as he was about to rise into the air, a low growl came from afar. Goo. Immediately after, another familiar cry sounded out. The sound was rather soft at first, but after a moment, it was as though it was Lei Ming. Yeah. Zhao Budian flapped her wings and soared into the sky excitedly. Little white rabbit. Tang Huan's heart was also filled with joy. He looked up, to see a black shadow appearing in the sky. Its speed was extremely fast, and not long later, its appearance was clearly visible. It was the pterosaur, and on the head of the pterosaur sat a white shadow, impressively it to be the flying jade hare. In just a few short breaths of time, the pterosaur had landed in front of the whirlpool along with the little white rabbit. Zhao Budian could not wait and landed on the pterosaur's head. Goo goo. Yeah. On the head of the pterosaur, The two little fellows were quickly communicating with each other. Zhao Budian was actually more and more excited. Sensing the change in Zhao Budian's emotions, Tang Huan couldn't help but exchange a glance with Feng Ming, and saw a hint of happiness in the other party's eyes. The abduction seems to have succeeded. Just as this thought flashed through Tang Huan's mind, the little white rabbit jumped onto Zhao Budian's back, and then, with a flap of its 3 pairs of wings, Zhao Budian arrived in front of Tang Huan and gestured excitedly. "Little bunny, do you want to come with us?" Tang Huan asked subconsciously. Although he had already guessed the answer, he still had to confirm it. "Goo goo." The little white rabbit grinned and nodded. "Great." Tang Huan was overjoyed. Then he suddenly thought of a question. "Little bunny, how should we address you? Do you have a name?" I. The little white rabbit nodded again, releasing another sound from its mouth. I. Tang Huan was startled for a moment, and then he couldn't help but smile, and said, "Okay, from now on we will call you Zhao." Seeing that the little white rabbit didn't seem to have any objections, Tang Huan pointed at the space aircraft and said, "Zhao, let's go in there first, and then we can go out together." Before long, one figure after another entered the space aircraft, and then the aircraft dove into the depths of the whirlpool like lightning, disappearing without a trace. At the edge of the whirlpool, the pterosaur stuck his head out and looked around. After he was completely sure, he howled crazily as he charged into the sky, his voice filled with unconcealable joy and excitement. Once the little white rabbit left, it became the overlord of this space. It was finally completely free. Chapter 623, 3 Feet Thunder Eagle. Between Origin, Holy Spirit and Destruction, 2,000 miles east of Stormedy, was a towering mountain. It was like an incomparably large sharp sword that rushed out of the water surface, piercing straight into the sky. On the peak of the mountain, a stone statue sat cross-legged quietly. The statue depicted an old man in a white robe. His face was thin, his hair was white, and his eyes were slightly closed. He looked very lifelike. Suddenly, a low cry rang out. The eyes of the stone sculpture were suddenly opened, revealing a pair of pitch-black, deep eyes. Immediately after, the old man in white seemed to have come to life. His beard and robes that seemed frozen started to flutter in the wind. "Have you already stepped into the heavenly domain realm? What a fast speed!" Muttering softly, a satisfied smile appeared on the wrinkled face of the old man in white. "It's time to see this little rascal." This little guy actually ran all the way to the edge of Turbid Sea area. "You sure have guts." The white-robed old man was slightly surprised, but as soon as he finished speaking, he floated into the air as if he was as light as a feather and flew to the north. At the edge of Turbid Sea area, on a desolate island, crash. On the slightly undulating surface of the sea, a small wave suddenly splashed outwards. Amidst the waves, a ball of the green light actually rushed out like lightning and appeared in the air above the island. It was Tang Huan's space aircraft that looked like a top. Inside the aircraft, Zhao sat in front of the transparent wall. Looking at the vast ocean outside, the little guy's eyes bloomed with a breathtaking light. His ears flapped rapidly, and his mouth opened widely as he cawed from time to time. He was inexplicably excited. On the right side of the little white rabbit, Zhao Budian responded incessantly. "Come, let's go deeper into the Turbid Sea area to take a look." After seeing the actions of the two little fellows, Tang Huan laughed heartily. As he spoke, the space aircraft had already rushed up to 1,000 meters high in the sky, like a ray of light, and flew away. Time flowed like water. The aircraft shuttled swiftly between each storm eddy. Now, Tang Huan's strength had greatly increased, and his control of the space aircraft had become even more proficient. Especially after Tang Huan had stepped into the heavenly domain, his perception ability had improved by leaps and bounds, allowing him to sense the auras of the outside world through the spirit map. Through those fluctuations, Tang Huan was able to sense the existence of the storm eddy earlier and was also able to more accurately determine the power of the sucking produced by the storm eddy. As a result, he was able to respond with ease. Whoosh! The space aircrafts were shockingly fast. Tang Huan's genuine qi and the mind power were being used alternately, but his current power recovery speed had finally caught up to his rate of consumption. This meant that Tang Huan could continuously use genuine qi and mind power, allowing the space aircraft to be in a state of flying speed at all times. Day passed, and night came. Unknowingly, another 2 days passed. In these past few days, the space aircraft had encountered many vicious beasts, either by themselves or in groups. However, they were basically all stage 9 beasts, so Tang Huan wasn't too interested in them. The reason why he wanted to go deeper into the turbid sea area was to see if he could find some of the heavenly domain fierce beasts' souls to forge an even stronger divine armament. Originally, the pterosaur in the underwater world had been a pretty good choice, but Tang Huan could feel that even though the pterosaur had always been ravaged by the little white rabbit, they still had a good relationship with each other. If the pterosaur was killed, it would definitely arouse the little white rabbit's displeasure. Since he couldn't kill the pterosaur, Tang Huan could only turn his attention to the heavenly domain fierce beasts outside. "Look, what's that?" Suddenly, Feng Ming gasped. Zhao Budian's Yai and Zhao Ai's gurgling also sounded out one after another, especially Zhao Ai's. His bright red eyes were filled with surprise, and even though he had already left the underwater world for 2 days, anything he saw in the turbid sea area still filled him with interest. Hearing that, Tang Huan could not help but look over, to see that outside under the night sky, a golden figure had appeared. Every golden figure had a red dot in front. Red top golden vulture. Tang Huan was surprised. What he saw at this moment made him subconsciously recall the group of red top golden vulture he saw earlier that brought them to the bottom of the sea and left that space one step ahead of them. Judging from the number of golden figures outside, they seemed to be the same as the red top golden vulture he had encountered before. Tang Huan did not stop his aircraft. The two of them got closer to each other quickly, and in a few breaths' time, the golden figures were clearly visible. It was the red-top golden vulture. With regards to the space aircraft that was glowing with a green light, they ignored it as if it was nothing. Tang Huan was a little surprised. Last time, the red-top golden vulture had been chased by a terrifying storm, but this time, it seemed that they were still being chased by something. They were also a bunch of unlucky bastards. In a blink of an eye, an eye-catching purple figure appeared in the night sky, becoming even bigger and bigger. Not long later, its appearance was clearly imprinted in the eyes of Tang Huan, Feng Ming and the two little fellows. At this moment, Tang Huan could not help but stop his aircraft and continue forward. "It seems. Is it 3 feet Thunder Eagle?" Feng Ming could not help but speak with a hint of surprise on her pretty face. "This is a beast that has long been extinct in a small world." 3 feet Thunder Eagle? Tang Huan muttered to himself. The group of red-top golden vulture that went by earlier should be the group that we met in the past. Amongst them, there are no small number of people that possess the strength of peak stage 9. As he finished speaking, excitement had already surfaced in Tang Huan's eyes. At this time, the 3 feet Thunder Eagle had already discovered the presence of the aircraft and stopped in front of them. A pair of large lantern-like purple eyes were filled with curiosity. His body was completely covered with purple feathers, and below his stomach, there were 3 claws. 2 of them extended backwards, while the other slightly curled forward, and was actually even thicker than the 2 behind him. It was a mountain range, and it seemed as if it had been torn apart by the terrifying power contained within the claws. "Are you interested?" Feng Ming saw through Tang Huan's intention and couldn't help but laugh. "Since it's the heavenly domain fierce beasts, we naturally cannot let it go easily. Come, let's go out and try to kill it." Tang Huan laughed and leaped into the air. The space above started to fluctuate, and following that, figures started to appear from within the space aircraft. Chapter 624, Haunting. Suddenly, a sharp bird cry tore through the night sky. 3 feet Thunder Eagle Pang Shao's body suddenly floated dozens of meters, as he looked in shock at Tang Huan, Feng Ming, Zhao Budian and Zhao Ai, who had almost appeared out of thin air. This time, with the strong little white rabbit, Feng Ming and Zhao Budian, who had just come out together, would not be in any danger. "Ho, The wings on Tang Huan's back condensed into form, and with a light flap, they shot towards 3 feet Thunder Eagle. In an instant, the 5 colors heavenly domain spread out from within his body, rapidly expanding in all directions. Seeing that, the little white rabbit let out a goose sound, and also activated heavenly domain, covering Zhao Budian and Feng Ming who were at the side, isolating the pressure that was coming from 5 colors heavenly domain. Screech! A fierce look flashed past the eyes of the 3 feet Thunder Eagle. Once again, he released a shrill cry that seemed to be able to pierce through one's eardrums. In the next moment, a dense purple aura surged out from the body of the 3-clan Thunderhawk, instantly transforming into a purple round cover, rapidly expanding. Within the round cover, it was actually Lei Ming who was emitting a bright light. The incomparably ruthless aura filled the night sky, and crackling sounds could be heard incessantly. This was the heavenly domain of the 3 feet Thunder Eagle. In a split second, Tang Huan's and 3 feet Thunder Eagle's purple-colored heavenly domains figures collided head-on as the two figures rapidly approached each other. At this moment, it was as though 2 gigantic rocks had collided at high speeds, causing an earth-shaking explosion. The terrifying strength chi spread out crazily, and where the multicolored light met the ball of purple light, the space distorted drastically, as though it could completely collapse at any time. A short while later, the 2 heavenly domains couldn't help but retreat due to the impact of the force, and the figures of Tang Huan and 3 feet Thunder Eagle were also retreating. However, within the 5 colors heavenly domain, not only was Tang Huan not shocked, he actually revealed a trace of a smile on his face. Even though the 3 feet Thunder Eagle opposite him had the heavenly domain, he was clearly weaker than the little white rabbit. Just like him, he was still in the initial stages of heavenly domain. Heavenly domain of the 3 feet Thunder Eagle contained the power of thunder and lightning. It was violent and tyrannical, with extremely strong destructive power. At the moment of impact, violent power was released crazily. If the opponent was a little weaker, the heavenly domain would probably be torn to pieces or even crumble. Unfortunately, his opponent was Tang Huan. Tang Huan's heavenly domain contained the power of the 5 elements, which seemed to be one with the world, and was extremely stable. Let alone the fact that 3 feet Thunder Eagle's current realm was only on par with Tang Huan's, even if it had already risen to the level of a little white rabbit that could move its will, it still would not be able to tear apart his heavenly domain. An instant later, as soon as the 2 figures stabilized their bodies, they fiercely rushed forward again without the slightest bit of delay. In the blink of an eye, the 5 colors heavenly domain and the purple heavenly domain clashed once more as an even more ferocious wave of strength chi swept out in all directions. With an earth-shattering explosion, Tang Huan was pushed back more than 10 meters while the 3 feet Thunder Eagle flew 10 meters away like a cannonball. After sparring with the little white rabbit for a long time, Tang Huan had become even more adept at controlling his heavenly domain. During the first clash, Tang Huan had only wanted to test it out, but in the second clash, Tang Huan had condensed at least 30% of his heavenly domain's power. This was almost the limit that he could reach at the moment. If he could gather all of the heavenly domain's power like the little white rabbit, he could directly crush the 3 feet Thunder Eagle's power with this attack. Although the 3 feet Thunder Eagle's power was berserk and tyrannical, it was evenly distributed throughout the entire heavenly domain. Under such a situation, even if it was just gathering 30% of the power of the heavenly domain, it was not something that the 3 feet Thunder Eagle could withstand. At this moment, the purple-colored heavenly domain was already trembling slightly. Extremely unwilling to die, 3 feet Thunder Eagle suddenly turned his head, flapping his wings, intending to escape. Nearly 100 meters away, the corner of Tang Huan's lips curled up into a smile. The heavenly domain scattered, and his pair of wings moved according to a strange rhythm, chasing forward. With Tang Huan's current strength, coupled with the phoenix stance of the 9 heavens technique, the speed at which he was flying at had already reached an extremely inconceivable level. Goo goo. Yeah! Zhao Ai jumped onto Zhao Budian's back, and the two little fellows shouted as they chased after him. Feng Ming couldn't help but laugh, and also spread his fiery red wings. In an instant, a few thousand meters had passed. Kai, the conqueror's spear that had just appeared out of Tang Huan's hands, had already pierced forward, unleashing the true flame-flowing rainbow. A terrifying flaming pointed awl roared out from the tip of the spear, bringing about a shocking heat wave as it stabbed into the purple-colored heavenly domain that was surrounding 3 feet Thunder Eagle. After the flaming pointed awl, Tang Huan used its power to cover up his body as he charged headfirst into the heavenly domain like a shadow. Screech! The 3 feet Thunder Eagle screeched. Within the purple heavenly domain, thunder and lightning flourished, striking continuously at the flaming pointed awl with its terrifying might. With waves of ear-piercing exploding sounds, the flaming pointed awl continuously melted. When it completely dissipated, Tang Huan had already penetrated several tens of meters deep into the heavenly domain. Whoosh! With a thought from Tang Huan, the 5 colors heavenly domain immediately erupted from the inside of the 3 feet Thunder Eagle. A terrifying power surged out and immediately shattered the 3 feet Thunder Eagle's purple-colored heavenly domain, then followed Tang Huan's figure into the distance and whistled forward. In the blink of an eye, 3 feet Thunder Eagle was already inside Tang Huan's 5 colors heavenly domain. Screech! A terrifying pressure surged from its surroundings and the speed at which the 3 feet Thunder Eagle was flying slowed drastically. This caused it to cry out in fear and anxiety. In the next moment, 3 feet Thunder Eagle wisely stopped running and turned his head. With a sizzling sound, streaks of lightning flashed out from his body and swam towards his head. Then, he opened his mouth and all the lightning gathered together into a thick bundle that shot out. Tang Huan sneered, then thrusted out the conqueror's spear in his hand again with the move True Flame Rainbow. The instant the explosive sound was heard, Tang Huan's afterimage was torn apart by the strength chi, but his real body quietly appeared in the air above the 3 feet Thunder Eagle. Under the heavenly domain's suppression, the 3 feet Thunder Eagle had no time to dodge at all. By the time it had detected Tang Huan's trace, the conqueror's spear had already spat out a captivating red spear light and silently pierced through his back and abdomen, piercing through his entire body. Screech! 3 feet Thunder Eagle immediately let out an incomparably ruthless and determined hiss. In an instant, streaks of lightning the size of a baby's fist shot out from the wounds on his back, spiraling upwards along the long spear, as though they were tentacles, wanting to drown Tang Huan in them. Buzz! The long spear trembled, emitting deafening vibrations. Then, an abnormally blazing flame roared out from the spear, and the lightning that twined around the spear began to blaze. Chapter 625, Thunder Domains. In the blink of an eye, the lightning had completely melted while the flames were pressing down with the wound on 3 feet Thunder Eagle's back as the center. Screech! The 3 feet Thunder Eagle let out a sad and shrill cry as Peng Shuo's body suddenly sank down, wanting to break away from the long spear that had pierced his back. However, its calculations were not working. The more it sank, the more Tang Huan would sink as well. Not only did the conqueror's spear in his palm not leave, it even started to emit even more intense flames, which caused the area it covered to become larger and larger. The material-like heat wave was rippling in the 5 colors heavenly domain. The 3 feet Thunder Eagle screamed again and again as he struggled and thrashed about in the air, trying his best to shake Tang Huan off. However, Tang Huan seemed to have merged with its body, and no matter how it swayed and tumbled, Tang Huan remained unmoving from the start to the end. As it moved, bolts of lightning came crashing down from other parts. They tried to extinguish the flames, but to no avail. Not long later, the 3 feet Thunder Eagle actually activated the heavenly domain once again. However, the moment its heavenly domain appeared, and before it could even expand, it shattered and dissipated under Tang Huan's pressure. Under Tang Huan's suppression, the 3 feet Thunder Eagle's struggle became smaller and smaller. After a long while, a round ball of purple chi appeared in Tang Huan's palm and he struggled violently. He wanted to escape, But this was the soul of the 3-feet Thunder Eagle. Tang Huan had finally managed to extract its soul before its body was incinerated by the Nirvana sacred fire. Now that one soul has been obtained, let's look for the next one. Tang Huan's figure moved, passing through the several hundred meters of space, and appeared in front of Feng Ming, Zhao Butian and Zhao Ai. Following that, the space aircraft rose up from Feng Ming's hand while trembling. The light that it emitted quickly formed into a cyan-colored vortex, enveloping all four of them inside it. 2 days later, in the early morning, a tiger-like, lion-like, winged vicious beast fell from the sky like a meteor. It caused an earth-shaking sound that shook the entire island. Whoosh! Tang Huan held the conqueror's spear, his entire body emitting a baleful aura. He was actually as cold as a war god, charging down from the sky like a bolt of lightning. A moment later, a huge commotion once again came from the depths of the island. It was as if clouds and smoke were churning amidst the dust and sand. The fierce beast's roars were one after another, but they were getting weaker and weaker. Not long after, they had completely disappeared, and Tang Huan's figure soared into the sky. At this moment, the spear in Tang Huan's hand had disappeared, and what replaced it was a ball of fiery red chi. A few more days later, in a region of the ocean near Stormedy, in the water that was continuously flowing in accordance with the whirlpool, the two figures of one black and one blue were tangled together. The strength chi continuously wreaked havoc as huge waves that were tens of meters high occasionally rushed out from the sea surface. Not long after that, a thick layer of blood spread in the sea. Roar! Accompanied by a wail, the sea surface regained its former calm. A black shadow broke through the waves and appeared, holding a dark blue object in its palm. The space aircraft went deeper and deeper into the turbid sea area, and Tang Huan killed more and more heavenly domain fierce beasts. On the 10th day after leaving the underwater world, Tang Huan had already killed 20 heavenly domain fierce beasts. However, Tang Huan had only collected 19 souls. In the end, the heavenly domain fierce beasts that they encountered was extremely powerful, and Tang Huan and Zhao Ai had worked together to injure it heavily. However, before Tang Huan could collect its soul, it had committed suicide, and its soul had completely perished, causing Tang Huan to feel extremely regretful. Indeed, the deeper you go, the stronger the fierce beasts that survive. Inside the space aircraft, seeing that Tang Huan had just recovered, Feng Ming couldn't help but say with a sigh, no wonder those fellows from Luo and the others lost so much their strength, and their aircraft was also severely damaged. In the past few days, although she had not participated in any battles, she could feel that the ferocious beasts she had encountered had become stronger and stronger, and the possibility of a heavenly domain fierce beasts also increased. In the first 2 days, she would only meet one heavenly domain fierce beasts, but now, she could meet a few every day. Moreover, in these last few days, it had not been as easy for Tang Huan to kill wild beasts as it had been in the beginning. That's right, it's about time for us to. Before he could even finish the word return, he was forcibly swallowed back down by Tang Huan. A strange look unconsciously appeared in his eyes, as Zhao Butian and Zhao Ai's surprised shouts immediately followed, echoing in the green space. Hearing that, Feng Ming subconsciously looked towards the horizon in the distance. Like a waterfall, a boundless purple wall descended from the sky, straight into the ocean. What was even more shocking was that the purple wall was actually formed by countless of thick lightning bolts interweaving together. Inside the space aircraft, although he could not hear what was happening outside, just from the shocking scene, he knew that the commotion outside was extremely loud. Then the lightning territory that Lord Xingmeng mentioned? Feng Ming could not help but exclaim, it must be the lightning territory without a doubt. Before leaving the tranquil continent, Xingmeng had warned Tang Huan time and time again to never try to pass through the lightning territory. At that time, Xingmeng had described the Thunder Dominion to be extremely terrifying. Although Tang Huan had agreed to it immediately, he did not pay too much attention to it. The lightning territory was only a few hundred kilometers wide, but no one knew how long it was. It was said that the entire turbid sea area had been cut apart by it. If one wanted to pass through the turbid sea area, the Thunder Dominion was, after all, a place where one could not circle high in the sky or from the bottom of the sea. Bolts of lightning struck down from the dome of the sea, reaching deep into the sea. Countless electric snakes swam around the sea near the Thunder Dominion. It could be said that the sea's surface was equally dangerous. Are we still going over? After a long while, Feng Ming finally swallowed his saliva and said. Tang Huan regained his senses and shook his head. He had sensed carefully just now that the space outside of the space aircraft was already filled with the energy of berserk lightning. For the time being, the space aircraft was still able to withstand such a level of power. However, there was still at least 100 miles of distance between this place and the lightning territory, and the further they went, the stronger the lightning power would be. If this space aircraft got too close to the lightning territory, it might even be injured again. As for the interior of the lightning territory, it was even more impossible for space aircraft to enter. If the space aircraft was unharmed and was able to pass through the lightning territory, it was clear that Shu and the rest were able to make it to the small world alive. However, right now, due to the lack of critical materials, the space aircraft had not been completely repaired. It was possible that it would be struck into pieces by the lightning energy before it could even touch the lightning domain. Let's go home. Yeah. Chapter 626. He is here. Tranquil continent, at the bottom of the eastern section of the dark abyss. In a cave, countless black ores violently churned like clouds, stirring up ear-piercing hisses from time to time. After an unknown amount of time, a huge rumbling sound suddenly rang out from the depths of the vast cave. The black mist was like a volcanic eruption as it continuously surged out from the center of this space. Unknowingly, the entire space seemed to have become distorted. Heavenly domain. Heavenly domain. After a long while, the aura finally stabilized and an earth-shaking wild laughter suddenly rang out in the entire space. I have finally stepped into the realm of heavenly domain. At almost the same instant the laughter rang out, the surrounding black fog rapidly withdrew like ebbing tides. In just a short span of 2 to 3 breaths, an exceptionally tall and sturdy figure was revealed. Within the helmet, 2 terrifying red lights burst out from his eyes, and the pair of huge wings on his back flapped slightly. This man was Demon Lord Fan Tian. In the blink of an eye, the last bit of the black mist had also entered his body, and there was an extra touch of chilliness within his laughter. Now that the heavenly domain is complete, I want to see, who else in this small world can stop me? Tang Huan. Xingming. Even if it is that person, I am not afraid. Whoosh. Even before he finished speaking, Fan Tian's body had already turned into a stream of light and disappeared without a trace from the depths of the cave. In the morning, south of the dark abyss, the human clan and the Tian, Heaven, clan allied forces' camp were all gloomy. Inside the wide tent, Xingming, Tang Zhao, Muking and the rest were all frowning in silence. When the Dark Night Marsh had fought against the Dark Night Marsh back then, the Demon Clan had suffered a great defeat. Taking advantage of the opportunity to give chase, the Human Clan and the Tian, Heaven, Clan allied forces had finally seized the snowy mountain-splitting land stronghold half a month ago, completely overtaking the Dark Abyss and stationed themselves in the southern part of the abyss. From then on, the Human Clan, the Tian, Heaven, Clan allied forces and the army of the Demon Clan faced off against each other across the north and south of the abyss. The dark spirit devil Qi in the dark abyss could erode all kinds of powers, and Tian Clan mages could circle around it from high up in the sky. However, if Human Clan wanted to pass through this dark abyss, then they could only go through the arch bridge that Demon Clan had built in the narrowest part of the abyss. However, that arched bridge was always covered by the dark spirit devil Qi. However, the Demon Clan had tens of thousands of troops stationed at the other end of the bridge. If they were halfway across the bridge and suddenly encountered an attack from the Demon Clan, not only would the martial warriors be alive, the entire alliance would be affected. Before they could think of a foolproof plan, the Human Clan and the Tian, Heaven, clan allied forces did not dare to act rashly either. But no one would have thought that 3 days ago, the demon lord Fen Tian that had never appeared in front of a battle before suddenly appeared. Furthermore, the moment he arrived, he displayed a terrifying strength that exceeded the peak stage 9, and it was said that he had already stepped into the legendary realm of Heavenly Domain. After displaying his power in front of the allied forces camp, Fen Tian did not fight with Xing Meng, Tang Moyang and the other strong warriors of the two races. Instead, he left a message for Human Clan and Tian, Heaven, Clan allied forces to surrender. Otherwise, after defeating the allied army of the two races, he would have to slaughter everyone in the Origin, Glory, and the Holy Spirit continent to form a river of blood. Fen Tian had only given human allied forces 3 days, and today was the 4th day after 3 days. Everyone, there's no need to think about it. From my point of view, it would be better to just fight Fen Tian. Inside the tent, an angry shout suddenly broke the silence of this place, and the one who spoke was Mo Huang, HMPH, Heavenly Domain? So what if you're a Heavenly Domain? I refuse to believe that with so many peak stage 9 martial saintess and law saints working together, they won't even be able to stop a single Fen Tian. You're right, another rather angry voice sounded out. Other than the many stage 9 rankers, we also have a few 100,000 human clan S and Tian, Heaven, Clan allied forces S. That Fen Tian is indeed strong, but there's only one person. Everyone was talking at once and were filled with indignation. Everyone, don't forget. After a while, Xing Meng laughed bitterly. The one our allied forces camp is facing is Dark Abyss. Even if we use up all of Fen Tian's strength with countless of our lives, as long as he retreat into the Dark Abyss, we won't be able to do anything to him. However, after he recovered his strength as the Dark Abyss, he could rush out once more. Time and time again, you've filled it with human lives. No matter how many people there are, it's not enough. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They had indeed overlooked this point. This was the Dark Abyss, not the snowy mountain-splitting land, and not the dark night marsh. In this place, if Fen Tian exhausted all his energy, he could completely hide inside the Dark Abyss, which was a difficult place to enter, whether it was the Human Clan or the Tian Clan mages. With his back against the Dark Abyss, Fen Tian was already in an invincible position. Furthermore, Fen Tian's strength was stronger than any one of them. Heavenly Domain. Heavenly Domain above stage 9. This was the first time many people had ever heard of these two characters. Even though the Fen Tian before was already the strongest of the 3 clans, at the very least, there was still Xing Meng and Tang Huan who could contend against him. Now, Fen Tian, who had already stepped into the realm of Heavenly Domain, was invincible in this world. He's not a match in a one-on-one fight. What should I do if he can't use his life to fight? If I had known about Fen Tian's situation 10 days earlier, I could have retreated to the snowy mountain-splitting land, or even the dark night marsh, and kept Fen Tian far away from them. But now, it's too late to retreat. Everyone was worried. Originally, the Human Clan and the Tian, Heaven, Clan allied forces had the absolute advantage. Although they had stopped for the time being, they could pass through the Dark Abyss, fight their way to the endless ruins, and completely destroy the Demon Clan. It was just a matter of time. However, no one expected Fen Tian to break through the limits of the Stage 9 and step into the Heavenly Domain. Why don't we act first? Shami started to speak, but even he couldn't help but shake his head at the words. Decline was completely useless against Fen Tian. Fen Tian was proficient in soul control, so it was very likely that he would be able to control the soul of the Stage 9 ranker who surrendered. At that time, it would be a true drop in power. Don't think too much, Tang Moyang suddenly said in a deep voice. Let's fight a round with Fen Tian first. If we give this few lives of ours to exhaust Fen Tian's strength, it might be able to buy some time for the allied army to retreat. As long as we retreat into the snowy mountain-splitting land, there will still be hope. This is the only way. Xing Meng could only nod his head. Then, he seemed to have sensed something and his face darkened. He is here. Chapter 627. seizing, whoosh, whiz. In the blink of an eye, Xing Meng, Mu King, Shen Guan, Tang Moyang and the rest of the Peak Stage 9 warriors had all appeared outside of the Allied forces camp. From within their line of sight, one figure after another flashed out from within the churning black mist. Directly across Allied forces camp was the bridge that spanned across Dark Abyss. At this time, many evil demon clan experts walked out from the bridge, their bodies brimming with killing intent. After a short while, hundreds of people had gathered at the end of the bridge. At the front was a giant ape that squatted on the ground while baring its teeth, like a huge mountain of flesh. Judging from the chi, the giant ape should have the strength of Peak Stage 9. However, after the giant ape, there were only 3 Stage 9 Demon King-s and the rest were all Stage 8 Demon Commander-in-Chief. In the past, with just this kind of lineup, these demon clansmen would not have the guts to pass through the Dark Abyss and came to the front of the Allied forces camp. But now, they did not have the slightest bit of fear. The reason they were so fearless was because of the demon lord Fen Tian. At this time, Fen Tian was spreading his wings and floating 10 meters in the sky. A terrifying aura was being emitted from the burly body, and the pressure it gave off was extremely terrifying, filling up the heaven and earth, and actually caused the air to seem to solidify, causing one's heart to tremble. There was complete silence at the entrance of the Allied forces camp. The expressions of Xing Meng, Shen Guan and the other experts from the Tian clan were all extremely serious. Although Fen Tian had not made his move, it was enough to let everyone feel a huge pressure. Under the onslaught of the pressure, those with weaker cultivations found it difficult to even breathe. The giant ape and the other experts of Demon Clan were not affected by the pressure at all. Their gazes towards Fen Tian were filled with excitement and fanaticism, and every part of their body seemed to be ready to move, wishing that they could immediately pounce and fight to the death to vent out all the grievances brought about by the defeat of the Demon Clan during this period of time. Everyone, 3 days have passed. Have you all made up your minds? High up in the sky, Fen Tian suddenly opened his mouth. His voice was not loud, his tone was calm, but every syllable seemed to contain a terrifying power. At this moment, everyone's already unstable minds trembled even more. Fen Tian, you don't need to put on an act anymore. Xing Meng suddenly laughed out loud. Back then you did not make a move. It must be because you have just broken through to Heavenly Domain. Your cultivation is still unstable, and if we make a move, the number of casualties will be disastrous. You yourself will not be much better. Your cultivation may not have stabilized today, but it is much better compared to that day. You know that we will never surrender, so if you want to make a move, hurry up. I am also trying to broaden my horizons. When Xing Meng's current aura fluctuated, compared to a few days ago, Xing Meng already understood why Fen Tian had only come to the Allied forces camp to flaunt his might and then left after saying a few harsh words. To start before he stabilized his cultivation, Fen Tian would have to take a huge risk. After all, his opponents were not 1 or 2 people, but many Peak Stage 9 rankers in the Human Clan and the Human Clan. After cultivating for a few more days, Fen Tian stabilized his cultivation realm and leveled up. He came to the front of the Allied forces camp once again, and it was clear that he was not doing this for the sake of being humiliated, but for a massacre. Although he did not reveal it clearly, Xing Meng could already faintly feel the vigorous killing intent in his body. Good, good. In that case, I shall grant your wish. Fen Tian laughed out loud. In the blink of an eye, a dense and cold killing intent was emitted from within his body like a storm. It seemed to have solidified as it swept forward. Wherever they passed by, space seemed to freeze. The moment they felt this killing intent, everyone's heart involuntarily felt bone-chilling cold. Without waiting for everyone to regain their senses, Fen Tian swooped down. In an instant, sand and rocks flew everywhere, dust tumbled, and everyone quivered as they suddenly became clear-headed. A ball of black aura surged out of Fen Tian's body like a volcanic eruption, and swept in all directions. Its speed was so fast that it reached an unbelievable level. When the crowd saw the black chi, they didn't even have time to react before they were enveloped by it. Following that, They felt an even more intense and terrifying pressure pressing down on them from all directions. Heavenly domain? This is the heavenly domain? At this moment, regardless of whether it was Mu King, Shen Guan, Tang Moyang or the others, they were all dumbstruck. Before, they thought that just relying on their numbers to fight to the death would be able to exhaust Fentian's strength and buy time for the allied army to retreat. But now, they suddenly understood that the strength of the heavenly domain, Stage 9 and even the Peak Stage 9 were worlds apart. No matter how many Peak Stage 9 martial warriors and mages there were, they probably wouldn't be able to do anything to Fentian. Everyone, how do you feel? Fentian laughed out loud, and that was condensed like a round cover suddenly fluctuated violently. After a split second, Shen Guan, who was inside the heavenly domain, felt as if he had been struck by a huge force. Blood spurted out of his mouth as his body staggered backwards, but before he could stand firmly, he was grabbed by a huge claw. Plop! Not long later, Shen Guan rushed out of Black Heavenly Domain and landed heavily in front of the giant ape. Take him down. Following Fentian's command, the giant ape immediately let out an excited roar and picked Shen Guan up from the ground. At almost the same time, another area of the Black Heavenly Domain began to fluctuate violently. In the blink of an eye, another figure fell in front of the giant ape like a kite with its string cut. Take him down. Take him down. Inside Black Heavenly Domain, the number of rankers captured by the giant apes and the other experts of the demon clan increased as time passed. For a time, earth-shaking shouts rose and fell one after another. The people of Demon Clan were so excited that they were dancing with joy. However, the inside of the Allied Forces camp was deathly still. Many Human Clan and Tian Clan mages were closely watching the movement outside the camp, but what they saw was the scene of Shen Guan and the other Stage 9 rankers being captured one by one. Inside the Demon Lord Fentian, the experts of the Human Clan and the Tian Clan did not even have the strength to fight back. Unknowingly, panic started to spread crazily all over Allied Forces camp. Xing Meng, come over here as well. Just as Fentian finished yelling, the space around Xing Meng started to distort violently, but right at this moment, a blue chi suddenly rose up from Xing Meng's body. In an instant, it congealed into a blue bubble, covering her entire body. Chapter 628, Fantasy Tide Dance. The bubble rippled a little like a ripple and actually managed to forcibly resist the heavenly domain's pressure. Immediately after, Xing Meng flew backwards as his long fingers danced like butterflies piercing through flowers, and in an instant, strands of blue light pierced through the blisters, shooting forward like arrows leaving the bow. Every thread of blue light was like a sharp needle, extremely sharp. Seeing that, Fentian snorted coldly. He flapped his wings, causing a terrifying gust of wind to kick up in the Black Heavenly Domain, pressing towards the dense blue light. But in the next moment, a hissing sound was heard, and the needle-sharp blue light actually penetrated through the storm, as they appeared in front of Fentian with lightning speed. Huh? Fentian exclaimed in a low voice, a little surprised. He obviously did not expect Xing Meng to be able to unleash such a powerful attack under the suppression of his own heavenly domain. However, Fentian was quickly relieved. As the strongest warrior with the longest lifespan among the three clans, how could Xing Meng not have some trump cards? In the blink of an eye, Fentian grabbed the back of his right hand, and a blood-red greatsword appeared in his palm. Buzz! The body of the sword trembled slightly, emitting an excited ringing sound. A glaring blood-red luster burst out crazily. At the same time, a tyrannical aura surged out of the sword like a broken dam. After a short moment, the gigantic sword in Fentian's hand was swung out with astonishing speed. Ho! A thick blood-red odor sprayed out from the sword and swept out like a waterfall. In a split second, it collided with a blue light. Bam! An earth-shaking explosive sound resounded throughout the world. The blood-red odor and the blue light nearly collapsed at the same time, transforming into a powerful and shocking strength chi that swiftly wreaked havoc. Fentian was like a ferocious beast that had just broken free from its cage. his burly body bursting forward as the gigantic sword in his hand chopped out once again. Kai, with a sharp whistling sound, a condensed blood-red blade light roared out, slicing through the air. Its power was monstrous, as if even a mountain in front of it could be cleaved in half. Xing Meng had retreated to the edge of the heavenly domain, and upon sensing the might of Fen Tian's strike, his pupils couldn't help but contract, and his 10 fingers danced wildly. His speed was actually even faster than before, and immediately, a blue wall whizzed forward, followed by a second, third, and fourth boom. But right at this moment, the gigantic blood-red blade suddenly flashed and shot down like lightning. The blue wall actually shattered one after another. Xing Meng's hands did not pause at all. The moment the 5th blue wall appeared, the 6th also followed closely behind. However, the speed of the blood-red blade light seemed to be even faster. When the 6th blue wall appeared, the 3rd had already disappeared without a trace. The instant the 9th blue wall appeared, the blood-red blade light also swept over. The last barrier dissipated with a bang, and the greatly weakened blood-red blade light rushed in, chopping at the blue bubble. With a pang sound of impact, the bubble rapidly fluctuated, and the blade light also melted little by little. However, inside the bubble, Xing Meng's face had become pale. "Xing Meng, eat my sword again." A loud laughter suddenly sounded as Fen Tian chased after him like his shadow. The blood-red greatsword in his hand, which carried the power of 50,000 kilograms, directly struck down Pa. As though she had suffered a heavy blow, her delicate body was sent flying several tens of meters away. The moment she landed, she spat out a mouthful of blood, and her originally pale face now had a sickly bright red color. "It's time to end this." Fen Tian's voice was filled with a ghastly coldness. Almost at the same time the voice rang out, the black heavenly domain around Xing Meng started to shake violently, and the blood-red greatsword in Fen Tian's hand started to wave quickly as well. Streams of sword light scattered out, as if they had interweaved to form a blood-red net, and rolled forward. Swish! The incomparably sharp strength chi spread out, as though it wanted to tear Xing Meng into pieces. Seeing that, a ruthless and determined look appeared in Xing Meng's beautiful eyes. She actually forcefully endured the terrifying pressure, and her hands started to dance with an unprecedented speed. In the blink of an eye, countless after-images appeared in front of her, as though dozens of hands were swiping at the same time. It was so powerful that it could topple mountains and overturn the seas. In an instant, Xing Meng's body was already engulfed, and the entire area seemed to have turned into a vast ocean, as monstrous waves whizzed forth, crashing down towards Fen Tian. In the next moment, that sword light was shattered, and the black heavenly domain trembled, as if it could collapse at any moment. "What a good old woman. Is this Tian clan's most powerful water-based magic, fantasy title dance?" Seeing that, Fen Tian was startled and angry. "You want to fight me to the death? If I have never entered the heavenly domain, I might really be able to let you succeed. But now, you have miscalculated." As he spoke, abnormally rich black chi gushed out from his body. Like giant black snakes bearing their fangs and brandishing their claws, they crazily pounced into the dark blue wave. Boom, boom. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. The heavens and the earth were trembling. Huge explosions rang out one after another, as if one's eardrums were about to be torn apart. On the bridge where the black chi was roiling, when the giant ape and the other experts of the demon clan saw this scene, they were extremely shocked. Inside the Allied Forces camp, countless of Human Clan and Tian Clan mages saw this scene. They too were shocked and tongue-tied, dumbfounded. Bam! After a while, the black heavenly domain could no longer hold on and finally collapsed into nothingness, but the dark blue wave was also suppressed and began to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, when the dark blue wave shrunk to a radius of only 2 meters, it suddenly exploded without any warning, and the extremely violent strength chi wreaked havoc, constantly tearing the huge black snakes into pieces. Before long, the entire area had regained some peace and quiet. Xing Meng's figure once again appeared, but his entire person seemed to have aged several tens of years. "Fen Tian, you're injured?" Xing Meng's body swayed. Looking at Fen Tian, who was surrounded by black chi, He suddenly laughed. "Old granny, go and die for me." The eyes inside Fen Tian's helmet revealed a sinister look. With a roar, the black mist around him quickly converged, but the pair of wings slapped down viciously. Immediately after, he appeared above Xing Meng, the blood-red greatsword in his hand hacked down. The sharp strength chi surged out, even the air seemed to split open. A terrifying killing intent swept out in all directions like a wave. At this moment, the surrounding temperature unexpectedly dropped. Xing Meng slowly closed his eyes as the corner of his mouth hooked up into a smile. In exchange for heavily injuring Fen Tian with their lives, Tian clan and Human clan still had hope, as long as Tang Huan could step into the heavenly domain realm and return from turbid sea area. Stop! Just at this time, a shout suddenly exploded in Xing Meng's ears. Chapter 629 We Meet Again. Tang Huan? Xing Meng was shocked. That seemed to be his voice. In shock, Xing Meng subconsciously opened his eyes and looked towards the source of the sound. What entered his line of sight was actually a small ball of white shadow. The speed of the white shadow was unbelievably fast. Whoosh! In an instant, the sound of breaking air resounded through the world, and along with that sound, an extremely terrifying aura fluctuation appeared. The giant sword in Fen Tian's hand did not pause at all, but two pairs of eyes could not help but sweep over. In the next moment, a trace of surprise uncontrollably appeared in his eyes. That white shadow was too fast. Just a moment ago, it was only 100 meters away, but in the blink of an eye, the distance between them was less than 10 meters. What was even more unbelievable was that even at such a close distance, he could not see the shape of the white shadow clearly. However, the aura that the white shadow was emitting was becoming clearer and more frightening to him. The more powerful the aura, the more power it contained. Once that power erupted, even he might not be able to withstand it. This meant that if he were to use his original sword force to chop down, even if he was able to kill Xing Meng, he would definitely suffer a heavy injury. Kai. At that time, Fen Tian could not care about being angry. His arms steeped, his wrist spun quickly, causing the sword force to change from a straight cut to a horizontal slash. Welcoming the white shadow, where the sword was, the lustrous light blazed brightly. The cold and tyrannical strength chi spread out crazily, setting up a violent blood storm. Bam! With a deafening sound, the white shadow ruthlessly smashed into the sword blade. Fen Tian could not help but let out a stuffy groan as the blood-red greatsword was knocked away by the huge force. Its body flew out a few dozen meters before crashing heavily onto the ground, staggering for a few more meters before it managed to stabilize its legs. That white shadow shot out at the same time, landing on the ground about 10 meters away. Dust filled the air, and a crater appeared in the sky at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a moment, the white figure revealed its true appearance. It was actually a cute little white rabbit. "This is rabbit? How is this possible?" At this moment, not only was Xing Meng dumbstruck, even the giant ape and the other experts of the demon clan, as well as countless of martial warriors and mages, found it hard to believe their own eyes. The thing that suddenly appeared to repel the demon Lord Fen Tian was actually such a little white rabbit. In the blink of an eye, the sound of people sucking in cold air successively sounded out. Even Fen Tian himself, upon clearly seeing the ball of white shadow, was also incomparably shocked. A small rabbit could actually possess such terrifying strength. But right after, Fen Tian seemed to have thought of something, and suddenly looked towards the direction where the little white rabbit appeared. The black shadow's speed was also extremely fast. In a blink of an eye, it was already 100 meters away. "Tang Huan?" The expression in Fen Tian's eyes changed slightly. Tang Huan. Xing Meng, however, had an unconcealable look of pleasant surprise on his face. The one who spoke just now was indeed Tang Huan. He had actually rushed back from the turbid sea area at such a crucial moment. Roar! At the end of the bridge, the giant ape angrily roared. Back then, it was at the bottom of the dark abyss. If not for the timely appearance of the demon Lord Fen Tian, it might have died at Tang Huan's hands. The Allied forces camp was in an uproar as the huge sound wave reverberated back and forth in the sky. Seeing the figure that was quickly approaching, The hearts of countless human clan and Tian clan mages couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. They didn't know where Tang Huan went nor where he came from, but his appearance made them feel as if they had grabbed onto a straw to save their lives. Fen Tian had already stepped into the heavenly domain realm, so perhaps Tang Huan was not his match. However, that little white rabbit that appeared obviously because of Tang Huan had displayed its ability to contend against him. As long as they could stop Fen Tian, to human clan and him, it would be a victory. Whoosh! Tang Huan's body moved like lightning, and in the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in front of the white rabbit. Goo! The little white rabbit's mouth slightly opened, and emitted a complacent cry that sounded like exploding thunder. With a jump, it landed beside Zhao Budian. Flying jade hair? She finally remembered that this little white rabbit should be the spirit beast spore that was ranked third in the whole world. Tang Huan went to the turbid sea area, and surprisingly found such a spiritual beast. In the blink of an eye, a voice entered his ears, but it was actually Tang Huan who was already in front of him. Aunt Xing, are you alright? I'm fine. Xing Meng gave a slight smile, as he was already completely relieved. It's just that my energy was exhausted, and I suffered some minor injuries, so I'm fine. You're finally back. As he finished speaking, Xing Meng's brows were already filled with gratitude. She knew Tang Huan's personality. Since he had returned to this place from the turbid sea area, it meant that he should have broken through to the heavenly domain's realm just like Fen Tian. That's good, Aunt Xing, leave this to me. Tang Huan heaved a sigh of relief, and turned to look at Fen Tian, his eyes revealing an extra cold intent. Fen Tian, we meet again. The moment he finished speaking, a dark red light flashed and the Conqueror's spear appeared in his palm. Kid, last time, I had something important to take care of, so I spared your life. This time, you won't be so lucky. The expression in Fen Tian's eyes was unsettled. He immediately laughed wildly, and rushed towards Tang Huan with large strides. The great sword in his hand released a blinding blood-colored luster. With a distance of 20 meters between them, the blood-red greatsword pierced forward at an astonishing speed. Kai, kai, swish. The sharp sound of something tearing through the air rang out, and huge blood-red sword beams condensed into form as they tore through the air. Wherever they passed, space itself seemed to be sliced into countless pieces, and an exceptionally sharp aura instantly filled an area of dozens of meters around them. An insignificant skill. Tang Huan laughed coldly as his footsteps sped up. In the blink of an eye, the Conqueror's spear in his hands had already thrusted out 100 times as dense spear beams carrying a blazing heat wave whizzed forward. In a split second, the spear beams and sword beams ruthlessly clashed, and produced sounds as if they were piercing through gold and cracked stones. Heavenly Domain? Fen Tian's pupils suddenly shrank. Tang Huan did not activate the heavenly domain, but compared to the last time, his attacks had undergone a tremendous change. If Tang Huan's cultivation was still in the peak stage 9, there would never be such an increase. Fen Tian could almost confirm that Tang Huan was also a heavenly domain level expert. Retreat. Without any hesitation, Fen Tian's body retreated. In that moment, he submerged into the rolling black mist of the dark abyss. Seeing that, Tang Huan frowned, and in the next moment, he passed through the area where the strength chi was wreaking havoc, and chased after the dark abyss. Chapter 630, Fighting Fen Tian again. The moment they entered the abyss, Tang Huan had already activated his 5 colors heavenly domain, causing the dense black mist to block them from entering. The dark spirit devil chi of the dark abyss could corrode the genuine chi and the mind power, but this heavenly domain was not just any normal power. Instead, it was a transformed form of its aura, something that the dark spirit devil chi could not devour. After activating the heavenly domain, Tang Huan's movements in the abyss were unimpeded. However, after a while, Tang Huan frowned. He could no longer feel Fen Tian's existence. As if Fen Tian had disappeared without a trace after entering the dark abyss, his aura seemed to have completely merged with the surrounding dark spirit devil chi. In between Tang Huan's mind instructs, in a second, both the 9 Yang Divine Furnace and 5 Colors Spiritual Pills were activated to the extreme. The perception ability was raised to an unprecedented level. and in a circumference of a few hundred meters, all the minute movements appeared in his mind without the slightest terror. Not long later, Tang Huan discovered a trace of an extremely minute movement on the cliff behind Tang Huan. There were no auras fluctuating, nor were there any sounds coming from it. However, in that small area, the flow of the dark spirit devil chi was rather strange, with less natural, and a few signs of man-made activity, as if it was being fanned by something, and was in a state of indecision. Where should I hide? Tang Huan thought for a moment, then suddenly turned and shot out. Almost at the same time he moved, the dark spirit devil chi there began to surge intensely, and there were even sounds of wailing suddenly bursting forth. He was indeed hiding there. If he did not discover him earlier and continued to chase after him, Fen Tian reckoned that he would have charged out of the dark abyss very quickly and returned to the front of the Allied forces camp. In that case, Xing Meng would be in danger. If Fen Tian used his soul attack, even a little white rabbit would be in danger. There was no time to stop them. A cunning fellow. Tang Huan snorted from the nose, and quickly chased after her. In the dark abyss, Fen Tian was like a fish in water. His speed was actually even faster than when he was in front of the Allied forces camp. Even with Tang Huan's current strength, he was still unable to immediately shorten the distance between the two parties. However, Tang Huan was not anxious. At this kind of speed, Fen Tian would definitely not be able to maintain it forever, and in terms of durability, Fen Tian would definitely not be able to compare to Tang Huan, who was able to circulate and use the genuine qi. As long as nothing unexpected happened, it was only a matter of time before he could catch up with Fen Tian. As for before the Allied forces campus came up, it was likely that the outcome had already been decided. If Fen Tian was not there, Special Devil Ape and the other experts of the Demon Clan would not be able to create any trouble. After all, other than the flying jade hair Zhai, the great killing machine, Feng Ming, who was left behind, had already rushed over. Whoosh! Fen Tian and Tang Huan, one in front and one behind. Unknowingly, it seemed as though they had already traveled back and forth several thousand kilometers within the dark abyss. Suddenly, a bit of light appeared in front of Tang Huan's eyes. He was clearly at the bottom of the dark abyss, 100 meters ahead. Fen Tian's tall and sturdy figure could be vaguely seen. Under Tang Huan's chase, Fen Tian seemed to have gone all out, as he desperately tried to flee. At this time, if he hesitated even a little, he would be enveloped by Tang Huan's 5 colors heavenly domain, and once he was enveloped by the heavenly domain, his speed would definitely drop greatly. Tang Huan laughed in his heart. He could feel that Fen Tian was already at the end of his rope, and wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Perhaps, when he was fighting the Ant Xing above, Fen Tian had already suffered some hidden injuries. Otherwise, even if he felt that he was no match for the Ant Xing, he wouldn't have escaped into the dark abyss so quickly. Fen Tian probably did not expect to be discovered so quickly, and as a result, fell into such a predicament. After a few hundred meters, Fen Tian, who was flying close to the cliff wall, suddenly disappeared. He looked over and realized that he had entered inside the cave at the side. Tang Huan's mind moved, and immediately followed. This cave was quite wide, and it curved forward. After entering the cave, Fen Tian had already retracted his wings. The sound of his clothes tearing through the air continuously came from the front, without end. Before long, Tang Huan's eyes suddenly opened, and an even wider area appeared before him. Fen Tian's figure once again entered Tang Huan's line of sight. 100 meters away, Fen Tian actually charged towards the wall in front of him without pause. Could it be that there was some sort of secret behind the wall? In a second, Tang Huan swiftly stepped on the ground. With space moving, the distance between him and Fen Tian was reduced to tens of meters. Roar! Fen Tian's body froze, and from his mouth, he started to scream like a wild beast. After a split second, an exceptionally dense black qi roared out from Fen Tian's body. It was rolling and surging like waves, continuously eliminating the terrifying pressure that was sweeping over from all directions. Immediately after, Fen Tian continued to rush forward, but his speed was still nearly twice as fast. The corner of Tang Huan's mouth curled into a cold smile. The conqueror's spear in his hand had already pierced out, and a form of true flame-flowing rainbow conjured a violent and shocking heat wave that seemed to be able to melt even the air. Ho! Fen Tian had no choice but to stop in his tracks, and slashed out with his sword behind his back, as the thick blood-red intent seemed to transform into a dense, cold torrent. In a split second, the black mist around him was torn apart, and the flaming pointed awl-s in Tang Huan's hands activated. The clanging sound filled the air. After Tang Huan had stepped into the heavenly domain, the power of the True Flame's rainbow technique was now many times stronger than before. Before even the blink of an eye, the flaming pointed awl had already pierced through the torrent of blood-colored energy released from Fen Tian's great sword and ruthlessly smashed against his chest. Bam! The sound of metal clanging rang out suddenly. Fen Tian groaned, as though he had been struck by a huge hammer. His body involuntarily flew out. He first smashed heavily onto the wall, and then bounced back a dozen meters. Only then did he fall to the ground with a thud, and immediately stood up. Tang Huan, I have truly underestimated you. I never thought that you would step into the heavenly domain realm so quickly. Fen Tian's tone was overcast, and actually revealed the intent of grinding his teeth. Originally, even if Tang Huan was a heavenly domain level expert, he had the confidence to fight her. But he never thought that before Tang Huan appeared, he would actually get injured under Xing Meng's fantasy Neptune dance. This left him no choice but to take shelter after he had confirmed Tang Huan's strength. There are a lot of things you don't think of. The corner of Tang Huan's mouth curled slightly, and his figure shot forward like lightning. Soon after, he was less than 3 meters away from Fen Tian as the conqueror's spear in his hands pierced forward continuously with lightning-like speed, the body of the spear releasing hundreds of millions of dazzling red rays. Kai! A sharp sound of space being torn apart sounded out, and a terrifying heat surged forth. The sharp point of the spear was just inches away, and the speed of Tang Huan's spear was astonishing. At this time, Fen Tian had no choice but to brandish his sword to parry. Clang! A huge crash sounded out, and Fen Tian couldn't help but take a step back. However, Tang Huan's second shot came one after another. The roaring heat wave seemed like it was going to burn him up. A deep and furious roar resounded throughout the space as Fen Tian slashed out with the great sword in his hand once again. Spear after spear, sword after sword, a clanging sound resounded through the void. Chapter 631, Soul Method True Explanation. 1. Every time they violently clashed with each other, exceptionally tyrannical strength chi would churn about like raging waves. For a moment, the area within a radius of dozens of meters seemed to be filled with hurricanes as whistling sounds rose and fell one after another, rumbling and shaking back and forth in the vast space. Under the suppression from Tang Huan's 5 colors heavenly domain, Fen Tian's counterattack became weaker and weaker. Several times he tried to activate the heavenly domain, but all of them ended in failure. It was clear that the remaining energy in his body was no longer sufficient to support him in condensing the heavenly domain's energy. Clang! After another huge explosion, Fen Tian's blood-red great sword flew out of his hand and flew about 20 to 30 meters away. His sturdy body was also flung out like a kite with its string cut, heavily smashing onto the ground. Kai! Tang Huan moved like a shadow, his spear like lightning. Almost at the same instant Fen Tian landed. The sharp tip of the fiery red spear had already pointed at the front of his chest as he opened his armor. Ding! A crisp sound rang out. A flash of astonishment flashed past Tang Huan's eyes. Fen Tian's armor was actually caved in, and not pierced by the spear. However, although he was astonished, Tang Huan's attack still went on endlessly. After the first spear thrust, another spear thrust forward, and this time, what pierced the spear was Fen Tian's head. However, right at this moment, a thin needle-like blood-red odor suddenly shot out from within Fen Tian's helmet without any warning, straight towards the center of Tang Huan's brows. Soul attack? Sensing the momentum of the blood-red odor, Tang Huan could not help but sneer in his heart. Back then when he had exchanged blows with Fen Tian, he had used such a method, but he could not do anything to Tang Huan's soul. Now that Fen Tian had stepped into the heavenly domain realm, his strength was even stronger, so his soul attacks would definitely be more violent. But after Tang Huan broke through to the heavenly domain, his soul also improved greatly. Moreover, Fen Tian was currently attacking him from within the borders of the heavenly domain. In the next moment, Tang Huan's spirit attack returned to normal, but the five colors heavenly domain started to fluctuate rapidly, weakening the blood-red odor. When it entered Tang Huan's forehead, the power it emitted would weaken by at least 30%. In that moment, inside Tang Huan's soul, although the chill was wreaking havoc wildly, the boundless sword intent immediately swept out from the depths of his soul, and fiercely clashed with it. In an instant, an unusually ferocious storm seemed to have been set off within Tang Huan's soul, but Tang Huan's consciousness remained clear-headed. This was the effect of the heavenly domain. Although he suffered from the soul attack, the long spear in Tang Huan's hands did not slow down at all. Just as Fen Tian raised his upper body, the sharp tip of the spear had already pierced through the hole in his helmet and pierced into his left eye. Immediately after, under Tang Huan's control, the raging flames that lingered at the tip of the spear quickly spread out under the armor, and in less than a breath of time, flames had already started to rise from the gaps in the armor. Ooh! Fen Tian's body struggled and twisted rapidly, like a wounded beast. He screamed miserably. At this time, under the sweep of the sword intent, the chilliness had already been completely dispersed. Tang Huan's agitated soul returned to calmness, but a hint of doubt uncontrollably flashed through his eyes. That spear strike just now had indeed pierced Fen Tian's eyes, but the feeling it gave him was as though it had stabbed into a ball of cotton, and not flesh body. Tang Huan, I will admit defeat this time, but I will be back soon to find you. The sound, however, became weaker and weaker. After he finished speaking, his entire body seemed to have completely disappeared, as the raging flames also dispersed into the air, leaving behind a huge set of armor lying quietly on the ground. Tang Huan frowned. He fiddled with the spear for a bit, then separated the armor, which was actually empty inside. Could it be that, like the secluded Night Divine Palace's palace mistress, the only thing that died here is Fen Tian's embodiment? Tang Huan couldn't help but mutter softly. Fen Tian was well versed in the way of the soul. Maybe he really had a way to condense a set of soul embodiment for himself. Actually, Tang Huan had already guessed this the first time he fought with Fen Tian, and now that Fen Tian had died, it made him even more suspicious. However, Tang Huan quickly smiled. If the one who died here was the embodiment, then it was very likely that Fen Tian's true body was inside the Abyss City. If his true body came looking for him, Tang Huan would definitely want it. Furthermore, even if Fen Tian did not come, Tang Huan would definitely look for him. With a light snort, Tang Huan's gaze fell on the opposite wall. The wall was sparkling and translucent like jade. It was extremely smooth and looked normal, but the moment Fen Tian entered the depths of the cave, he immediately rushed towards the wall. In addition, when he had fought with Fen Tian earlier, he had also tried to get close to the wall time and time again, but unfortunately, he was always stopped by Tang Huan. Fen Tian's abnormality caused Tang Huan to be even more convinced that there must be some other profound mystery hidden within the wall. Tang Huan's eyes quickly swept the area once, and then he walked to the bottom of the wall and carefully observed and felt everything. Not long after, a faint smile emerged from the corner of Tang Huan's lips, and following that, his palm that was filled with genuine qi directly slapped onto the wall. With a bang sound, a crack actually appeared in the wall. Under Tang Huan's push, a door quickly opened. Behind the door was a small square space. Whoosh! Tang Huan immediately rushed in. In the center of the space, there was a praying mat, while on the walls of the space, there were ripples of energy rippling through a radius of a few meters. What was strange was that this space seemed to contain a strange power, which completely isolated the dark spirit devil qi outside of the door. Even when Tang Huan no longer activated the five colors heavenly domain, the genuine qi and genuine qi did not suffer any erosion. That seems to be the magical transmission formation. Merely by inspecting the inner wall, Tang Huan already understood that the reason Fen Tian came to this place and wanted to enter this dimension with all his might was to escape using this teleportation circle. The person this teleportation circle is connected to is most likely Fen Tian's lair Abyss City. Tang Huan thought slightly, and then shot forward. However, at this moment, the small area on the opposite wall suddenly fluctuated even more violently, as if a slightly undulating sea surface had suddenly been stirred up by raging waves. The originally stable energy fluctuations suddenly became violent and chaotic, affecting even the surrounding space, causing it to distort rapidly. This transmission array is about to collapse. Tang Huan's heart skipped a beat. With a slight thought, he kept his conqueror spear, and quickly danced with both of his hands. In the instant when a golden round cover enveloped Tang Huan's body, the walls that were fluctuating intensely suddenly released an earth-shaking sound, and a burst of powerful and shocking power surged out like a volcanic eruption. Suffering from such an attack, Tang Huan retreated several steps, and in the air, strong gales were howling, and strength chi was spinning. Chapter 632, Soul Method True Explanation. 2. It took the space of 2 to 3 breaths for the force gushing out from the wall to disappear. With the protection of the golden bell cover, Tang Huan had only lost a portion of his genuine chi and was not injured. The magical transmission formation had completely collapsed. At first, he only believed 80 to 90% that the one who was killed was Fen Tian's embodiment, but now, he believed 100%. When the embodiment had just disappeared from here, the magical transmission formation had already crumbled, so the person who acted must have been Fen Tian's actual body or his other embodiment without a doubt. After understanding this, Tang Huan felt somewhat regretful. The place where this magical transmission formation had reached must be where Fen Tian was. If not, his movements would not have been so fast. If Tang Huan had gone through the teleportation circle earlier, he would have been able to kill Fen Tian in one go. Now, Tang Huan was a little worried that he would hide. However, things had already come to this point. There was no point thinking about it. It would be better to visit the Abyss City in a few days. While he was thinking, Tang Huan collected his emotions and dispelled the golden bell cover. But just as Tang Huan was about to leave, he seemed to have sensed something, and subconsciously looked towards the center of the space. At that place, there was originally a praying mat. The strength chi that erupted when the teleportation formation crumbled had already blown it away, revealing a 1-foot square. There was actually a wooden box of the absolute spirit tree in the alcove. Tang Huan's heart skipped a beat, and in a few steps he had already went over. With a grab of his hand, the 2-inch tall wooden case landed in his palm, gently weighing the wooden box in his hand. After that, with a clatter, Tang Huan undid the lock and lifted the lid. A ray of white light shone into his eyes. Inside the box was a thin book. The cover was crystal clear and white like jade. The 4 characters on the book were giving off a soft luster. Tang Huan looked over, and his heart immediately twitched. Soul Method True Explanation? Immediately after, an uncontrollable look of ecstasy flashed across Tang Huan's face. It was said that the reason the demon lord Fen Tian was proficient in the way of the soul was because he had obtained a soul method true explanation. He never expected that he would actually put the soul method true explanation in this place. This should be one of Fen Tian's cultivation grounds. It was very safe for him to place the soul method true explanation here. After all, and the Tian clan's mages would never appear in this dark abyss, and for the people of the demon clan, who would dare to intrude upon Fen Tian's training grounds. The reason why Fen Tian came to this place, aside from wanting to borrow the magical transmission formation, was probably because he wanted to bring the soul method true explanation with him. Unfortunately, he had underestimated Tang Huan's speed, and he didn't even have the chance to enter this small dimension, let alone escape with the soul method true explanation. After a long while, Tang Huan finally calmed down and took out the soul method true explanation, and started to quickly flip through it. There were a total of 9 pages inside, and each page was as sparkling and translucent as a jade cover. However, there were no words on the 9 pages, only bits and pieces of white light moving around inside the pages. as if each page contained stars that filled the sky. Tang Huan reckoned that this soul method true explanation should be similar to the Great Harmony heavenly classics he had obtained from the Forgotten Cities Universe Pavilion. If he could successfully cultivate this soul method true explanation, he would definitely be able to use a soul-controlling and soul-attacking technique like what Fen Tian had. There was even a method to erase the mind stigma that he had left in the ghost-killing artifact spirit. Although we haven't completely killed Fen Tian, to be able to obtain this soul method true explanation is also a huge gain. After going over it a few times, Tang Huan resisted the urge to immediately try it again, and returned the soul method true explanation back into the wooden box, and stored it inside the Sumeru magical ring. After that, Tang Huan did not delay any further. In between mind instructs, in a second, he had already activated his 5 colors heavenly domain and flew outwards. At this moment, a completely different scene was occurring in front of the Allied forces camp. When Feng Ming appeared, they did not even have the time to bring Shen Guan and the others who had been captured. They fought to be the first to rush to the bridge that was covered with the dark spirit devil Qi, while the people in the Alliance camp were all cheering. Other than Xing Meng, many other Stage 9 rankers from both clans were injured and unconscious. However, Tang Zhao and the rest were still in charge of the situation inside the human allied forces. Xing Meng, Tang Zhao and the others had originally wanted to wait for Tang Huan to return and wake up before deciding on their next course of action. However, under Feng Ming's suggestion, Zhao Ai rushed into the bridge right in front of them, as if he had never seen anyone before. Seeing the special devil ape, who possessed the strength of peak stage 9 being stomped to death by Zhao Ai, no matter whether it was the newly retreated Demon Clan experts or the already settled Demon Clan soldiers on the bridge, all of them collapsed. Seeing that, Xing Meng, Tang Zhao and the rest no longer had any concerns. The experts from the Allied army all moved. When Tang Huan returned to the front of the camp, the Human Clan and the Tian, Heaven, Clan allied forces were moving about in waves, constantly crossing the bridge and settling down on the other side of the dark abyss. After a bustling day, both sides of the dark abyss finally became quiet. About 70% of the allied army moved to the east of the dark abyss, while the remaining 30% stayed west to guard the camp to prevent any demon clansmen from circling around them, cutting off the allied army's retreat, and the other 70% would probably attack the endless ruins. If they protected both ends of the bridge, no matter what happened in the future, the allied army could advance or retreat. Unknowingly, it was already late at night. In a tent in Allied Forces Camp's eastern region, after Tang Huan sent Xing Meng and the others off, he couldn't wait to take out the soul method true explanation. Before, Tang Huan had planned to ask Xing Meng for guidance on the way of the soul after returning to the continent, and then try to erase the soul imprint and cure his master. After all, a soul could not be compared to flesh body. When he was at the Turbid Sea area, even if his cultivation had stabilized, Tang Huan still had not moved. He was worried about this. Now, Tang Huan felt that studying soul method true explanation was more effective than teaching Xing Meng. It had to be known that Fen Tian's attainments in the field of the soul far surpassed Xing Meng's, and the reason why he could do this was because of the soul method true explanation. Tang Huan did not expect himself to reach Fen Tian's level very soon. He only wanted to know exactly what he should do. Of course, the prerequisite would be that his soul was stronger than Fen Tian's. Chapter 633, Returning the Human Body. Time quietly flowed on. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. So that's how it is. In the evening, within the tent, Tang Huan suddenly opened his eyes. A smile of enlightenment appeared on his face, and he couldn't help but exclaim, "This soul method true explanation is truly magical." The more he studied, the more Tang Huan felt that the soul method true explanation was mysterious and profound. For example, the spirit adhesion technique that the magic eye had told him about in the sword crafting valley actually had 2 types of cultivation methods. The first was the heavenly note soul controlling art, and the second was the shattered spirit art. The heavenly note soul controlling technique could be used to absorb souls and nurture them, while the fragmentation god technique could be used to crush mind stigmas that were left in the artifact spirit's soul. At that time, illusory eyes had passed down the heavenly voice's soul-controlling art to Tang Huan, leaving out the equally important shattered spirit hearts. Of course, this was not a surprise to him. He probably did not even know of the existence of the fragmentation god technique. The complete spirit adhesion technique was only one of them. The soul method true explanation also recorded various methods of soul utilization, such as the spirit array that Fen Tian had set up in the sword crafting valley with 981 profound spirit ghost bead, the true soul puppet technique that Fen Tian used to control illusions, the method to condense soul imprints, soul talismans, and so on. The soul attack technique that Fen Tian had used against Tang Hua twice could also be found within the soul method true explanation, which was called the soul killing stab. Within the soul method true explanation, there were other methods that were even stronger than the soul killing stab. Most likely, even Fen Tian had not succeeded in cultivating them yet. In a blink of an eye, Tang Huan closed his eyes once again as he concentrated his mind. After a while, Tang Huan felt a wave of soul force coming from his body. This wave did not originate from Tang Huan's soul, but from an extremely condensed black aura. What this soul imprint contained was Fen Tian's soul energy. Back then, when he killed Fen Lei at the Sky Spirit Realm Luofu world, he transferred the soul imprint into Tang Huan's body. Through this soul imprint, no matter where Tang Huan was, Fen Tian was able to sense his position. When Tang Huan was trying to save his master in the prison at the bottom of Dark Abyss, he should have relied on this soul imprint to guide him in his time to appear. Previously, Tang Huan clearly knew that the soul imprint was hidden between his brows, but he could not detect its existence. In the past, Tang Huan thought that the soul imprint was like a transparent object. Even though he knew that it was there, he couldn't see it, but now, the transparent object seemed to have solidified. Under these circumstances, it was much easier to expel the soul imprint, and after researching soul method true explanation for so many days, Tang Huan knew where he should start from, in order to successfully eliminate it. Let's wait a little longer. But just as Tang Huan was prepared to take action, he suddenly had a change of heart. His mind started to work faster. In just a few breaths of time, Tang Huan's face unconsciously revealed a smile. After getting rid of Fen Tian's embodiment, Tang Huan was worried that she had actually hidden herself. In this way, wanting to find him in this vast small world was akin to looking for a needle in a haystack. The chances of success were minuscule. But at that moment, Tang Huan suddenly realized that he could totally use her methods to return the favor. Fen Tian could sense his position using the soul imprint, so why couldn't he determine Fen Tian's position using the soul imprint? If he could successfully borrow the soul seal, no matter how many embodiment Fen Tian had, it would be impossible for him to escape. The more Tang Huan thought about it, the more he felt that this method was feasible. There must be a strange connection between Fen Tian and this soul imprint, otherwise, it would be impossible for Fen Tian to sense Tang Huan's location. As long as Tang Huan could capture the indistinct connection between the soul imprint and Fen Tian, he would be able to locate Fen Tian's position. In that moment, Tang Huan's heart was overjoyed, and he immediately focused his mind, his own enormous soul starting to follow the strange rhythm as it slowly fluctuated. Time passed bit by bit as the sky quietly darkened. Tang Huan's body was like a sculpture as he remained motionless. Feng Ming, Zhao Budian and Zhao Ai walked in and out of the tent a few times, but they did not manage to distract Tang Huan in the slightest. Unknowingly, dawn had finally arrived. Got it. Tang Huan suddenly opened his eyes, his pupils releasing a terrifying aura. After countless failures and attempts, he finally managed to catch a glimpse of the connection between the two of them, and the connection was precisely directed to the endless ruins. Even after these few days had passed, Fen Tian still did not flee from the tranquil continent. Rather, he was still hiding somewhere within the endless ruins, or even the Abyss City. There's no time to lose. Let's go to Endless Ruins and find him. Tang Huan stood up with a smile on his face. On this trip to the Endless Ruins, not only was it necessary to find Fen Tian, It was also necessary to find one of the 5 great spiritual fires, the sharp spiritual fire. Furthermore, the positions of the sharp spiritual fire and Fen Tian seemed to overlap. Whoosh! In the next moment, Tang Huan appeared from within the tent. Endless ruins, just by hearing the name, knew that it was an extremely desolate area. It was said that before the separation from the forging god Great World, this place was filled with large areas of towns and cities. Not only did the earth-shattering battle cause the small world to collapse from the forging god Great World, it also turned all of the cities and towns into ruins. It even completely destroyed the environment of that area. Even today, the ruins were still in ruins. In this vast area, it was hard to find any traces of vegetation. Whoosh! In the air above the ruins, space aircraft flashed like meteors that spanned across the sky. Within the aircraft, Tang Huan pressed both of his hands on the center of the round platform, but his 2 eyes had fallen on the Uzi who was standing motionlessly to the side. All along the way, Tang Huan had been researching the condition of the old man's soul. This old man's soul had already been completely imprisoned. The difficulty of recovering his soul was much greater than expelling a soul imprint. Right now, Tang Huan dared to remove the soul imprint in his body, but the more he thought about the soul method true explanation, the more he was amazed by Fen Tian's method. This also caused Tang Huan to not dare to rashly make a move within this old man's soul, in case something were to happen and he would regret it for the rest of his life. However, Tang Huan also believed that as long as he continued to study the soul method true explanation to help the old man recover, it would just be a matter of time. Moreover, even if he gave up on the soul method true explanation, as long as he was able to kill Fen Tian on this trip, the old man would naturally be able to recover. Chapter 634, Abyss City. Tang Huan, Abyss City is almost here. Feng Ming's voice caused Tang Huan to wake up, and in the blink of an eye, he turned to look. In the distant horizon, an incomparably large hole had appeared. Yeah! Gurgle gurgle. Zhao Butian and Zhao Ai curiously laid on the almost transparent wall, their eyes open wide and round, their mouths constantly shouting. Is that the Abyss City? Looking at the hole, Tang Huan was surprised. Since the demon clan's lair is named after the word abyss, then it will naturally not be built on the surface, Feng Ming said with a smile. Oh? Tang Huan's interest was piqued. He had heard people talking about this Abyss City a few times, but he never thought that he would build such a pit. A moment later, the space aircraft appeared above the hole. The hole was at least 10 miles in radius and was so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. On the barrel-shaped wall of the hole, many paths snaked up, and inside the hole, strange stone pillars of various shapes and sizes shot up into the sky. Thick ropes crisscrossed between the stone pillars and the walls of the cave. They were densely packed like spider webs, and from time to time, one could see figures shuttling back and forth on the ropes. After observing for a while, Tang Huan's eyes revealed a strange look. Below, many demon clansmen were carrying large and small bags, and were converging into the long dragon-like line on the east side of the hole. They were evacuating from Abyss City. In a second, Tang Huan understood what was going on. In this war, the Tian clan and the Tian clan could be considered to have achieved complete victories, but Tang Huan did not feel that it was necessary to completely exterminate all the demon clansmen. Without the demon clan's threat, the honeymoon period between Tian clan and himself would probably end quickly. As for the civil war between the 3 countries of human clan, it might break out soon, and it might even reach an extremely intense degree. Therefore, Tang Huan did not plan to stop them. It was not a bad thing for these demon clansmen to escape. What Tang Huan cared about now was the demon lord Fen Tian. After leaving the Allied army camp, Tang Huan stayed inside of the space aircraft. In there, without being able to sense Fen Tian's location, he didn't want to follow them and escape Abyss City. Let's go out and take a look. After a short moment, Tang Huan and Feng Ming appeared in the air one after another and formed their wings, while Zhao Butian and Zhao Ai, who followed closely behind, landed on Tang Huan's shoulders on their left and right. As for the space aircraft, it was grabbed by Feng Ming. Just by sensing it, Tang Huan could not help but be excited. Fen Tian was already in the Abyss City, and not only that, the sharp spiritual fire was also in the pit. "Let's go!" Tang Huan couldn't wait and shouted. He flapped his wings and dove down together with Zhao Budian, and with him, Feng Ming followed closely behind. The two of them moved as fast as lightning, getting closer and closer to the pit, and very quickly, demon clansmen sensed their existence. Then, from inside and outside the hole, sounds of exclamations came out. Not long after, many figures flew out of the hole and shot up into the sky. They were all demon clans. However, they came fast, and escaped even faster. When they saw Tang Huan and Feng Ming's faces clearly, they immediately ran far away while screaming. Whoosh, whiz. Tang Huan and Feng Ming directly rushed into the pit, and in the next moment, the Abyss City that was inside the pit started to boil, while the demon clansmen on the rope road were like ants on a hot pan. They swam around desperately, and fear and panic quickly spread. "Tang Huan, it's Tang Huan. Tang Huan is here. The Flaming Phoenix King is also here. Run quickly." Panic filled the air. These days, even though there were a large number of demon clansmen who had left the Abyss City, there were still quite a few remaining. The appearance of Tang Huan and Feng Ming caused this bizarre city to become chaotic. Many people panicked, and even slid down from the thick ropes. Both Tang Huan and Feng Ming turned a blind eye to the chaos that was occurring in the air. His figure continued to sink, and the scene inside the Abyss City slowly played out, to the surprise of Tang Huan, who was entering the place for the first time. The stone pillars that rose up from the bottom of the hole, as well as the barrel-shaped cliff, were all dotted with countless big and small caves. These caves were like the houses in the heavenly forging city. They were all the residences of the demon clansmen. The deeper they went, the larger the stone pillars became. Some of the caves even ran through the entire stone pillar, and they were connected to the other stone pillars with thick ropes. This kind of cave was equivalent to the streets and alleys of Human Clan City. Moreover, one could see countless of abandoned stalls in these alleys. After a while, Tang Huan and Feng Ming finally arrived at the bottom of the pit. This place was about 10 kilometers from the ground, but it was not as dark and gloomy as Tang Huan had imagined. Resplendent white luster rose continuously from below, and illuminated the lower half of the Abyss City as bright as day. Sharp spiritual fire. Tang Huan's mind was moved. At the bottom of Abyss City, he could not even see the shadow of a demon clansman, but in this vast region, the sharp aura and the murderous aura seemed to have solidified, and in the middle of it, it made the skin on one's body feel like it was pierced by needles. At this moment, Tang Huan almost instinctively thought of one of the 5 great spiritual fires, the sharp spiritual fire. The reason why he could sense such an anomaly must definitely have something to do with the spiritual fire. However, the most important thing for Tang Huan was not to investigate the location of the sharp spiritual fire, but rather to look for the hiding place of the demon lord Fen Tian. Whoosh! Following the faint trace of connection between souls, Tang Huan seemed like an arrow that had left the bow, constantly shuttling between the stone pillars. After about 10 breaths of time, Tang Huan suddenly stopped, and stood in front of a gigantic stone pillar. At this moment, what appeared in front of Tang Huan was a cave that was a dozen meters tall, shaped like a round arch. The hole continued to extend deeper into the stone pillar, and all one could see was a dazzling white light. They couldn't see the inside of the cave. Fen Tian and the sharp spiritual fire are hidden in the same place? Tang Huan's eyes flashed, a trace of doubt sweeping past his eyes. No matter if it was the connection they had with Fen Tian's soul seal, or the connection the flame heart transmitted, they all pointed towards the bright and white cave. At this time, within Tang Huan's Danshan, the 9 Yang Divine Furnace had already taken the initiative to quickly circulate. Judging from his previous experience, the sharp spiritual fire was clearly not far away from him. Since Fen Tian and the sharp spiritual fire are together, it's just right that we'll catch them all in one fell swoop. After a moment of delay, Tang Huan's body was already like a stream of light, leading the way and entering the cave. Chapter 635. Heavenly Devil Cave. The deeper they went into the cave, the stronger the sharp killing intent became. After about a few hundred meters, Tang Huan and Feng Ming stopped in their tracks. Right now, what laid in front of them was a rock wall that resembled white jade. This stone wall was a door. There must be another space behind it. The sharp aura and murderous aura that Tang Huan felt was emitted from the stone wall. Not only that, Tang Huan had also captured a burst of extremely tyrannical aura. Fen Tian. These two words subconsciously flashed across Tang Huan's mind. He had once killed Fen Tian's embodiment and was extremely familiar with his aura, so the aura fluctuations that originated from the stone wall now were exactly the same as Fen Tian's aura fluctuations. Fen Tian was definitely behind the stone wall. Tang Huan squinted his eyes, the killing intent in his eyes shooting out. Following that, he calmed his heart and concentrated, carefully inspecting the stone wall. After a while, Tang Huan understood that the stone wall did not have any sort of array or spirit array. However, it would not be easy for him to enter. Bam! In a blink of an eye, Tang Huan's bombs, which were filled with genuine chi power, suddenly struck forward, like two gigantic rocks that weighed over 10,000 kilograms, smashing ruthlessly into the stone wall. The heaven-shaking sound echoed crazily in the inside the cave, as if it could tear open one's eardrums. However, the stone wall only trembled for a moment, before it returned to normal. Tang Huan frowned slightly. He did not know what material the wall was made of. Although he had not set up any enchantments or spirit arrays, it was still extremely heavy. Furthermore, Fen Tian seemed to have sealed it completely from the inside, making it difficult for even with Tang Huan's strength to break it open. This is the Heavenly Devil Cave, the place where all previous generations of Demon Lord cultivate in seclusion. Feng Ming couldn't help but say, this place is already very different from a few years ago. In the past, this door seemed to have been easily opened. Heavenly Devil Cave. Feng Ming's words confirmed Tang Huan's judgment. Zhao Ai, come with me. Following which, Tang Huan patted the two little fellows on his shoulders and said, Zhao Budian, you go over to Feng Ming's side first. Gu. Zhao Ai pursed his lips, releasing a sound that sounded like thunder. After lightly stretching his body, he jumped out from Tang Huan's shoulder and landed a few dozen meters behind him. However, Zhao Budian made a yee sound, flapped her wings, and floated behind Feng Ming. Tang Hua took a light breath. 9 Yang Divine Furnace and 5 Colors Spiritual Pills circulated to their limits at the same time, and a layer of faint golden luster appeared on the surface of his body. Begin. Abruptly, Tang Huan growled, and once again struck out with both palms. Gu. Almost at the same time, a sound like that of gold breaking stone exploded out. Zhao Ai's legs suddenly stomped on the ground, transforming into a ball of white light, flying straight towards the stone wall at the end of the cave. Wherever he went, a powerful storm was stirred up, and the whistling sounds seemed to have congealed into a terrifying sound wave. In less than a blink of an eye, Zhao Ai had already turned his body in midair and heavily stomped his legs on the stone wall. Zhao Ai's incomparably powerful strength was like a volcanic eruption, roaring out from his 2 hind legs, and fiercely smashed onto the stone wall with the force of thunder. Bam! Almost at the same time, another loud noise burst out. It was Tang Huan's palms that had landed on the stone wall as well. The boundless genuine qi, combined with the tyrannical power of the flesh body, surged out of his palms with the force of a landslide. Under the impact of the 2 huge forces, the stone wall trembled violently. It could not hold on any longer and was pushed back almost a meter. Again, Tang Huan's brows raised in joy, as he shouted out, Gu. Zhao Ai once again bounced several tens of meters away. Begin. After a short moment, a shocking rumbling sound once again reverberated in the air. Under Tang Huan and Zhao Ai's second round of joint attacks, not only did the stone wall continue to move back by about a meter, it even revealed numerous crisscrossing cracks. Again, after the third joint attack, the stone wall was no longer able to take it and completely exploded into pieces. It shattered into pieces and was swept inside the cave by the tornado formed by the strength chi. However, It had only advanced a few meters before it quickly spread outwards. Tang Huan concentrated and looked over. It was the cave behind the stone wall that had suddenly expanded, and his line of sight also opened up abruptly. Through the drifting sand in the air in front of him, he could vaguely see a huge round ball standing there, with white flames seemingly blazing around the ball. Not long later, the dust and sand dispersed and everything became clear. The space in the depths of Heavenly Devil Cave was around 100 meters in radius. In the center of the space, there was not a round ball, but a white-colored. The flower bud had a height of 10 to 20 meters, as if it was carved from a piece of white jade. It looked like a perfect whole. The surface of the flower bud was covered with a layer of white flames. The tip of the flame crazily swayed and burned extremely fiercely. However, there wasn't the slightest bit of warmth within the flames. Sharp spiritual fire. Tang Huan subconsciously gasped. The flames were definitely one of the 5 great spiritual fires. The sharp spiritual fire. There's someone inside. Just then, Feng Ming suddenly shouted out. Yeah, Gugu. Zhao Butian and Zhao Ai also raised their little claws, pointing at Peng Shao's flower bud as surprise filled their eyes. It really is him. Inside the flower bud that was as white as jade, a tall and sturdy figure actually sat cross-legged. Although his appearance could not be seen clearly, the pair of blood-red wings on his back had already exposed his true identity. Furthermore, within the flower bud, there was a powerful qi that Tang Huan felt even more familiar with, which continuously fluctuated outwards. Fen Tian, Tang Huan suddenly shouted. His voice was like thunder, resounding throughout the Heavenly Devil Cave. Tang Huan, I didn't expect you to find me so quickly. From inside the flower bud, Fen Tian suddenly opened his mouth, and his ice-cold emotionless voice came out. Immediately, Fen Tian raised his eyelids, revealing a pair of blood-red eyes. He chuckled, and said with a sinister killing intent, It's good that you're here. It'll save me the trouble of going out to find you again. Tang Huan, this Heavenly Devil Cave of mine is the place where you will die today. Open. Buzz. The moment the word open rang out, intense trembling sounds filled the entire Heavenly Devil Cave. The white flames that burned fiercely on the surface of the flower bud were like a receding river, shrinking quickly and entering Fen Tian's body. Following that, the bud that was about to bloom layer by layer quickly bloomed. In less than a breath of time, the proud blooming white flower had already fully bloomed, occupying nearly half of the Heavenly Devil Cave space. Chapter 636, Killing You Twice. In the middle of the layer after layer of flower petals, Fen Tian had already stood up. His burly body was covered with a black robe and his face was rather delicate and pretty. At this moment, the wings on his back had already spread out, flapping gently, as though he wanted to soar into the sky. You fused with the sharp spiritual fire? The look in Tang Huan's eyes instantly became extremely sharp, and the moment the flower bud bloomed, the aura of the sharp spiritual fire disappeared without a trace. Your eyesight is not bad. You actually know this sharp spiritual fire apostrophe. Fen Tian swept his eyes across Tang Huan, and then started to laugh loudly. Tang Huan, a few years ago, you fused with the Nirvana sacred fire. Why do you still want the sharp spiritual fire now? Unfortunately, you came a step too late. This sharp spiritual fire already belongs to me. This humble one has worked hard for many years and has finally managed to completely fuse with the sharp spiritual fire today. Tang Huan, you will soon be able to taste the taste of this kind of spiritual fire. As he finished speaking, Fen Tian's laughter became even more insolent, and in his palm, a ball of white flames had already sprung up, fluctuating rapidly with his laughter. Fen Tian, you made 3 mistakes. Hearing that, the smile on Tang Huan's face suddenly became strange. Firstly, I have not only fused the Nirvana sacred fire, but also the Bodhisattva fire and the Zhuanming initial fire. Second, your sharp spiritual fire is of the 5 elements metal, while my Nirvana sacred fire is fire. My spiritual fire can perfectly counter your spiritual fire. Third, after a person dies, the fused spiritual fire will not die out as well. As long as I kill you, Your sharp spiritual fire will still be mine." "What?" Hearing Tang Huan's words, Fen Tian not only stopped laughing, his expression became even more unsightly. "If you want to kill this reputed one, you should not be afraid of losing your tongue." "Tang Huan, die for me." Fen Tian was furious, but as soon as he said that, he spread his wings and rushed up to the sky, and immediately, black heavenly domain flew out from his body. Compared to the heavenly domain which he used his embodiment on a few days ago, this heavenly domain now had an additional intent of showing off its sharpness and being able to destroy anything. "Fen Tian, if I can kill you once, I can kill you twice." Tang Huan laughed heartily. With a su sound, he was like a ferocious beast who had just escaped its cage, as he charged forward at lightning speed. At almost the same time, his 5 colors heavenly domain appeared as well. However, although Tang Huan's tone was light, there was not the slightest bit of contempt in his heart. The last time he was able to easily kill Fen Tian's embodiment was because Fen Tian had just broken through, and in his battle against Xing Meng, Fen Tian had also been injured. But right now, what he was facing was actually Fen Tian's true body, so his strength definitely far exceeded that of his embodiment. This could be seen from the heavenly domain that Fen Tian had activated. A few days ago, when he activated the embodiment, it covered an extremely wide area, but now, Fen Tian's embodiment only covered a few meters of area. Upon stepping into the heavenly domain realm, the greater the degree of contraction of the heavenly domain, the greater the explosive power. Zhao was a living example. In just a few short days, Fen Tian's heavenly domain had already shrunk to such a state. In addition to successfully fusing with the sharp spiritual fire, his strength must have been raised by a great amount. At this time, if Tang Huan wanted to defeat him, she would have to spend a lot of time and effort. In a split second, the little cluster of black heavenly domain collided with a rapidly expanding 5 colors heavenly domain. Amidst an earth-shattering sound, the powerful strength chi rolled out, and at the place where the 2 heavenly domain collided, there were even more intense ripples that could be seen with the naked eye. After a moment, Tang Huan's pupils could not help but constrict as the conqueror's spear appeared in his palm. On the other side, Fen Tian's face was sinister, his body was like a lightning bolt, and the black heavenly domain that covered his body seemed to have turned into an incomparably sharp sword, fiercely piercing into the 5 colors heavenly domain and quickly approaching Tang Huan. Fen Tian's current control over the heavenly domain actually had a faint hint of Zhao demeanor, but it was not as smooth and at ease as it was now. Even so, the might unleashed by the heavenly domain was not to be underestimated. In between Tang Huan's mind instructs, in a second, the heavenly domain suddenly fluctuated, continuously delaying Fen Tian's attacks. The conqueror's spear in his hands pierced out at an astonishing speed. At this moment, Tang Huan had already activated Nirvana Sacred Fire, Bodhisattva Fire and Xuanming Initial Fire to their limits, and a terrifying heat surged out from the spear. At the sharp tip of the spear, a captivating red flame continuously surged out, and in an instant, it turned into a huge fireball. Bam! In the blink of an eye, that fireball had already whizzed out from the spear, and like a blazing sun falling from the sky, it fiercely smashed onto Fen Tian's black heavenly domain, causing a loud noise that seemed as if it would split gold. Immediately after, the terrifying strength chi began to wreak havoc in the vicinity of Tang Huan's 5 colors heavenly domain, while the black heavenly domain began to shake intensely. Inside heavenly domain, Fen Tian's eyes were wide open, his face was warped, and a black chi surged out of his body. After a moment, the black heavenly domain finally recovered its stability. Tang Huan, your Nirvana Sacred Fire is indeed powerful. I have underestimated it. In the next moment, Fen Tian could not help but sneer, and then, he extended his hand to his back and grabbed. Its style was the same as the huge sword used for embodiment, but its blade was longer and wider, and the blood-red color of the sword was even more inferior, as though the entire sword was completely condensed from blood. The moment the huge sword was unsheathed, a dark and cold tyrannical aura surged out like a violent wave. If it was someone with a weaker cultivation, they would probably go insane from the impact of this aura. Ho! In Fentian's palm, a white flame surged out, like a jade dragon. It circled around the blood-red greatsword, and in that moment, the entire gigantic sword was enveloped by the dense flame. The sharp intent was extremely terrifying. Fire countered gold. Gold extinguished. Tang Huan, your Nirvana sacred fire has a Bodhisattva fire and Xuanming initial fire cycle. It is indeed strong, but this sharp spiritual fire of mine is even stronger. Fentian laughed out crazily. He flapped his wings, and his body rushed forward explosively. The gigantic sword in his hand that was surrounded by white flames hacked down from above Tang Huan's head. In this instant, the black heavenly domain also began to change shape along with Fentian's sword force, as though all of the heavenly domain's power had been superimposed onto the gigantic sword. Kai! An ear-piercing whistle rapidly fluctuated within the cave as the enormous sword descended. Flames danced wildly as it emitted a soul-stirring might. At this moment, it was as if a huge mountain had collapsed. Tang Huan was the first to bear the brunt of the impact, immediately feeling an incomparable sense of pressure. Chapter 637 You're going to be disappointed. Buzz. With a slight raise of his eyebrows, Tang Huan shook both his arms. The Conqueror's spear, like a bow that had been pulled to the shape of a full moon, fiercely bent and released its bowstring, causing the spearhead to suddenly collapse upwards. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the blood-red greatsword and the Conqueror's spear had already clashed against each other. The loud bird cries seemed to have congealed into an essence that rolled in all directions, and the two flames clashed even more fiercely. The blazing heat and the sharp aura intertwined, filling up an area of over 10 meters around them. In a split second, the spear and sword separated from each other under the impact of the tremendous force. The giant sword in Fentian's hand flew high, and his body involuntarily floated up. Both of his arms seemed to tremble slightly. The body of the Conqueror's spear in Tang Huan's hands was pressed into a curved arc. The tip of the spear just touched the ground, and his palm even felt a numbing pain. However, the tyrannical sun spirit body immediately caused the cracks on Tang Huan's palms to stop bleeding and quickly heal. In this blow, both sides were actually evenly matched. Fentian, looks like you're going to be disappointed. Tang Huan laughed. With a flap of his wings, his body rose into the air as well. The spear in his hand was like a dragon, thrusting towards Fentian as fast as lightning. He had clearly sensed the battle between and the embodiment in the dark abyss. Initially, he had thought that after successfully fusing with the sharp spiritual fire and advancing into the heavenly domain, he would possess the strength to surpass Tang Huan. However, from the looks of the exchange just now, the strength of both parties seemed to be on par with each other. If the opponent was only Tang Huan, then it wouldn't matter even if the battle ended in a draw. However, there was still a rabbit with shocking power that came with Tang Huan. He already knew that the rabbit should be the flying jade hare, a type of spiritual beast that was famous for its tyrannical battle power. Its strength was probably not any weaker than Tang Huan. If it were to participate, it would definitely lose this battle. It might even lose its life. His only embodiment had already died in the dark abyss and his true body was here. If his original body was no more, then his soul would have been completely destroyed. In an instant, Fentian's reaction wasn't slow at all. Ho! While quickly flapping his wings and flying forward, the gigantic sword in Fentian's hands was also rapidly dancing. Blood-red odorous unceasingly surged out and lingered around the sword. Almost every time Fentian moved forward a little, that giant sword that looked like a doorboard would expand by a bit, and the white flames surrounding the sword would also become even more fierce. When the two sides were only about 10 meters apart, the blood-red greatsword had already expanded by several times, and the aura it emitted made people's hearts tremble. Tang Huan, try this again. Fentian growled, and suddenly waved the gigantic sword. In a blink of an eye, the condensed blood-red odor began pouring down like a waterfall, covering an area with a radius of more than 10 meters, including Tang Huan. At this moment, an incomparably sharp aura whizzed out, and the void seemed to be sliced into pieces by countless sharp blades. In a blink of an eye, Tang Huan's figure had been completely torn apart. "This is bad." Fen Tian's expression suddenly changed. The instant his thought flashed through his mind, he discovered a blazing heat shooting towards him from the left rear. The speed was so fast that he had no time to retaliate. Just then, Fen Tian flapped his wings without hesitation and floated into the air. In a split second, a large ball of fireballs smashed onto Fen Tian's black heavenly domain, erupting with a sound similar to a great bell. The terrifying strength chi wreaked havoc as Fen Tian retreated quickly. The black heavenly domain trembled even more intensely, and streams of fiery red aura penetrated through the seal of the heavenly domain, getting extremely close to Fen Tian's body. The terrifying heat made him feel as if his entire body was about to ignite. "Fen Tian, how do you feel?" Tang Huan laughed. His long spear danced as he chased after it like a shadow. Earlier, he had coordinated the Visional Phoenix 5 footwork with the space moving to display it within the 5 colors heavenly domain. When Tang Huan used these two methods, he became even more relaxed and at ease. Also, the speed at which he traversed through space became even faster, making it impossible to guard against his opponents. When they were sparring in the turbid sea area, Tang Huan rarely used such a method. Now that he was fighting with Fen Tian, he naturally did not have to hold back. Tang Huan. Fen Tian was finally able to stabilize the heavenly domain, but he clenched his teeth and spoke sinisterly. However, when he saw that Tang Huan had already arrived in front of him, he could only forcefully suppress the angry blood-red greatsword in his chest and slashed outwards with a sweeping force of 1,000 soldiers, dragging a long white flame tail behind him. After a moment, the sword had cut the conqueror's spear, and also cut Tang Huan's waist. At practically the same time, Fen Tian reacted. Whether it was the conqueror's spear or Tang Huan, they were both after images that had yet to disperse. Just like earlier, Tang Huan's real body had already teleported away. "Damn it!" Fen Tian cursed in his heart, but he did not hesitate to charge forward. But right after, Tang Huan's figure appeared on the left in front of him. Before he even had the chance to react, the conqueror's spear that was surrounded by raging flames had already pierced into the black heavenly domain as fast as lightning. This sudden change of events caused Fen Tian to be greatly shocked. Tang Huan had actually consecutively made 2 transformations, and the connection between the teleportation and the teleportation was extremely perfect. This had greatly exceeded his expectations. In the instant that the ear-piercing scream came, Fen Tian had already retreated backwards, and dense black chi surged out of his body, instantly forming a thick barrier. It was also at this time that Tang Huan's spear had passed through Fen Tian's heavenly domain and landed on the black barrier. With an explosive sound, a terrifying strength surged out of the spear like a violent storm. The black barrier immediately shattered into pieces, while the heavenly domain was no longer able to hold on, and was immediately torn to shreds by the strength chi. As for Fen Tian, he felt as if he had suffered a heavy blow. His tall and sturdy body was thrown more than 10 meters away, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the anger in Fen Tian's chest was already hard to conceal. Compared to the psychological blow he'd received, the injuries he'd received in his body could be considered negligible. He had originally thought that he and Tang Huan were evenly matched, but when Tang Huan unleashed his spatial magic, he suddenly realized that Tang Huan seemed to be even stronger than him. Tang Huan was only around 20 years old, and had only cultivated for a few short years. He was a dignified demon lord, had commanded the demon clan for dozens of years, and had even led an army to attack the Origin continent several times, almost exorcising the human clan from the continent. And now, his embodiment could not even compare to Tang Huan's, and he was actually not even Tang Huan's opponent. Immediately, an indescribable feeling of humiliation erupted from the bottom of Fen Tian's heart. Chapter 638 I must thank you, Kai. A sharp whistle suddenly pierced the ears, awakening Fen Tian from his stupor. Tang Huan appeared in front of him once more, and the blazing spearhead quickly expanded and expanded within his pupils. That terrifying warmth immediately calmed Fen Tian down, and that sense of humiliation was immediately replaced by an intense sense of danger. Ho! The black heavenly domain activated it once again, but it was no longer shrinking. Instead, it instantly expanded to the limit, and the majority of its coverage overlapped with Tang Huan's 5 colors heavenly domain. At about the same time, the blood-red greatsword in Fen Tian's hand also slammed out, like a raging mountain or a raging river. Clang! Amidst the loud sound, the spear and the sword separated upon contact. In the next moment, from between Fen Tian's brows, a group of blood-red odor roared, and instantly transformed into a blood-red tempest, sweeping towards Tang Huan with a speed that no one could dodge. Soul-killing storm. Tang Huan's eyes darkened. The soul attack that Fen Tian had unleashed was not soul-killing stab, but an even more powerful soul-killing storm. He never thought that he would actually succeed in cultivating this technique. The sword spirit could withstand the soul-killing stab, but it might not be able to. Seeing Fen Tian brandishing the sword and rushing towards him, Tang Huan did not hesitate at all. The conqueror's spear withdrew, and his 10 fingers immediately danced, golden bell cover immediately covering his body. And at this moment, the sanguinary storm had already engulfed him. The chilliness was bone-chilling, and it seeped into the depths of his soul, making it impossible for him to stop it. After a short moment, the sanguinary storm had also seeped into his soul. Tang Hua tried his best to maintain the golden bell cover, but the 5 colors heavenly domain was unable to hold on, and in an instant, it disappeared. Abruptly, an explosive sound echoed. It was Fen Tian's blood-red great sword, which was surrounded by white flames, landing on the golden round cover around Tang Huan's body with a lightning speed. The golden bell barrier instantly shattered, turning into specks of golden light that quickly dissipated, while Tang Huan's body involuntarily retreated backwards. Tang Huan, seeing that, Feng Ming was shocked. He immediately flapped his wings, using the phoenix soaring sky technique, and shot towards Tang Huan with an astonishing speed. Yeah! Zhao Budian also cried out in alarm, as he followed right behind Feng Ming. Whoosh! At this time, Fen Tian did not continue to chase after Tang Huan. Instead, he strongly patted his wings, turned into rays of light, and rushed out of Heavenly Devil Cave. Gu Zhai angrily opened his mouth and let out an earth-shaking roar. He then stomped on the ground and rushed towards Fen Tian like a meteor. You little beast, scram for me! Fen Tian roared out, and another group of blood-red odorous appeared from between his brows, transforming into a gust of wind that swept towards Zhai. In a blink of an eye, Zhai was surrounded, and his speed plummeted. His curled-up figure immediately revealed itself and stretched, and then, as though he was drunk from alcohol, he staggered a few times in the air, and then fell down with a pa-da sound. Whoosh! Fen Tian secretly heaved a sigh of relief, flying above Zhai without the slightest hesitation. However, just as he was about to pass through this vast space and enter the circular arched passageway, a change suddenly occurred. A figure suddenly appeared at the mouth of the passageway. Tang Huan? Fen Tian's body shook. He could not believe his eyes. The one who was at the entrance of the passage was Tang Huan. Tang Huan, you can actually recover so quickly? Fen Tian was shocked and angry at the same time. Fen Tian, I have to thank you. Tang Huan snorted coldly, a look of ridicule flashing past his eyes. If not for learning Divine Sense and Soul Consolidation method from you, I might not have been able to handle this soul-killing storm of yours. The Divine Sense and Soul Consolidation method was only one of the methods used within the Soul Method True Explanation. It can make the soul become as stable as a mountain and as firm as a boulder in an extremely short amount of time. It is extremely effective in resisting soul attacks. The power of this soul-killing storm was far stronger than the soul-killing stab. If not for the Divine Sense and Soul Consolidation method, even if the sword intent within Tang Huan's soul was peerless, it would still be difficult to resist. But after using the Divine Sense and Soul Consolidation method, Tang Huan was dazed for a moment, and then he woke up. It was because of this that Tang Huan was able to use space moving in time and block Fen Tian's path. Soul method true explanation? Hearing these words, Fen Tian clenched his teeth so hard his teeth almost shattered. A few days ago at the Dark Abyss, he used his embodiment to run to that cultivation cave with all his might. There, he used the soul method true explanation as an important reason. He had spent a lot of effort to find that soul method true explanation. There were many methods that he had yet to succeed in cultivating them. However, he did not expect that not only would the embodiment completely disappear, the soul method true explanation would also fall into Tang Huan's hands. With regards to the soul method true explanation, he had originally been hoping that Tang Huan would fail to notice it, but now, that little bit of hope in his heart had been completely shattered. If not for the power that erupted when you destroyed the magical transmission formation and flipped the praying mat placed there, I really wouldn't have been able to discover the soul method true explanation that was placed under the praying mat. Fen Tian, don't you think I should thank you? At the end, Tang Huan's ridicule grew even stronger. Hearing Tang Huan's words, Fen Tian was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Before this, he never could have imagined that the reason Tang Huan obtained the soul method true explanation was due to him. However, the magical transmission formation was connected to the Heavenly Devil Cave. If he did not destroy it in time, Tang Huan would have charged into the Heavenly Devil Cave and killed the original body that had not completely merged with the sharp spiritual fire. Thinking of this, Fen Tian immediately felt much better. However, when he thought about his current situation, Fen Tian's heart turned cold. That soul-killing storm had yet to be completely cultivated, and when it was used, it was rather barely able to withstand the pressure. It was only one time, but it was still something he could endure. And 2 times in a row, it had already caused heavy damage to his soul. A damaged soul would have a tremendous impact on one's ability to unleash their strength. Under these circumstances, how could he be a match for Tang Huan? Fen Tian, you must be feeling really bad right now. Seeing that Zhai, who was originally lying on the ground, had already stood up, Tang Huan couldn't help but slightly relax. His gaze once again fell on Fen Tian, but he seemed to have seen through his worry, and suddenly sneered. After you used the soul-killing storm, you did not stay behind to attack, but chose to escape, especially after you used this kind of soul attacks method twice, which caused you to not dare to delay any longer. It seems like the 2 consecutive soul-killing storm has brought about quite the after effects for you. Who knows how much more of your strength you can use right now. Chapter 639, Fen Tian's death. Fen Tian's face turned green. He took a deep breath and bellowed, Tang Huan, if you want to know how much more strength I can unleash, come at me. Before his voice fell, the colossal sword in Fen Tian's hand had already been swept out. A gigantic blood-red sword beam swept across the sky, and swept towards Tang Huan like a waterfall. Once he made a move, the heavenly domain which had already become unstable from the use of the soul-killing storm twice immediately dissipated. While Tang Huan was still in the midst of his mind instructs, in a second, the 5 colors heavenly domain stirred his power yet again, enveloping Fen Tian within. The conqueror's spear in his hands, like a divine dragon swinging its tail, welcomed the sword beam. Bam! Amidst the intense sounds of strength chi colliding, the sword beam instantly shattered, the spear and sword clashing once again. After the loud explosion, Fen Tian could not help but groan out. He was actually sent flying along with his sword, and with a flap of his wings, he barely managed to stabilize himself more than 10 meters away. His pale face was uncontrollably flushed red, and his palms were already dripping with blood. Tang Huan suddenly appeared in front of Fen Tian, his spear shooting out like lightning. Fen Tian roared out wildly, and his gigantic sword slashed out brazenly, the tyrannical strength chi pouring down, and in the blink of an eye, another dang sound was heard. The spear and sword parted upon contact, and under the violent impact of the strength chi that suddenly erupted, Fen Tian's tall and sturdy body fell back yet again. Swish! Tang Huan moved like a shadow, spear after spear, spear after spear, sweep and smash, The sound of metal clanging continuously rang in his ears. Fen Tian was short, but his attacks were more and more hurried, and he was becoming more and more powerless, as though every time the spear and sword clashed, his body would be forced to retreat by the strength chi. Ding! In the next moment, Tang Huan's sixth spear thrust out. The tip of the spear had a burning flame spinning around it. The heat was extremely pressing, causing Fen Tian to be in a hurry. He had no choice but to place the great sword horizontally in front of his chest, and with gritted teeth he pushed forward, and with a clear and melodious sound, Fen Tian once again shot backwards with his sword, his back smashing heavily against the stone wall. Bam! The entire heavenly devil cave trembled violently. Blood spurted out of Fen Tian's mouth as his body slid down the stone wall. Although he quickly stood up, his body swayed as though he was about to fall down at any time. Fen Tian, looks like your soul will soon become my spirit of divine weapon. Tang Huan glanced at Fen Tian and sneered. The conqueror's spear condescendingly smashed towards Fen Tian. In your dreams. Fen Tian's expression was sinister. His blood-red eyes looked as though they were about to drip blood. His appearance was extremely terrifying. Hearing Tang Huan's words, his mouth emitted a creepy laughter, and he grinded his teeth as he growled, Tang Huan, even if my soul is destroyed, you won't be able to do as you wish. Almost at the same time the voice came out, Fen Tian's soul force suddenly became extremely berserk. Tang Huan's spear stopped, his eyebrows knitted together, and then another set of blood-red odorous appeared from between his brows, as an even more violent blood-red storm whizzed towards Tang Huan. Soul-killing storm? Tang Huan's face darkened, the long spear left his hand, transforming into the body of the Atramotinous Dragon King. Peng Shuang fiercely pounced towards Fen Tian. Almost at the same time, Tang Huan's mind instructs, in a second, slightly moved, and he quickly executed the divine sense and soul consolidation method, causing his soul to follow the wondrous rhythm and fluctuate outwards. In the next moment, the sanguine storm had already penetrated deep into Tang Huan's soul, and the sinister and cold aura swiftly wreaked havoc. Immediately after, deep within Tang Huan's soul, a boundless sword intent surged out and crazily collided with the cold. However, the moment before the blood-red storm rushed in, Tang Huan's soul had tightly curled into a small ball, unaffected by the cold. This was the effect of the divine sense and soul consolidation method. He flicked his finger for a moment, and then, a moment. Tang Huan finally regained his senses, and saw Fen Tian's body flying backwards under the Atramotinous Dragon King's pouncing attack, falling 20 to 30 meters away, and not moving anymore. Tang Huan exhaled a long breath, and his figure flashed like lightning as he floated to Fen Tian's side. Carefully sensing, within Fen Tian's body, the aura of the soul had already completely dissipated. Tang Huan had a complete understanding of the soul, so he naturally knew what was going on. Even Fen Tian's soul was unable to endure the third time he used soul-killing storm, as the moment the soul-killing storm was released, his soul had already collapsed and completely disappeared. This kind of Fen Tian was naturally unable to live. Tang Huan felt somewhat regretful. If such a soul could be collected and obtained, the divine armament refined would definitely be incomparably tyrannical. Tang Huan, are you alright? Feng Ming's graceful figure flashed and arrived in a flash, looking at Tang Huan worriedly. Yeah. Zhao Budian flapped her 3 pairs of small wings and flew over. The little white rabbit was already lying on its back. I'm fine. Tang Huan laughed, his gaze sweeping past Feng Ming and Zhao Budian, and resting on the little white rabbit. Zhao Ai, how are you doing? Good goo, Zhao Ai groaned, looking a little dispirited. Don't worry, with me here, you'll be able to recover very soon. Tang Huan understood the meaning behind the little white rabbit's words and comforted it while rubbing its head. Zhao Ai was not like him, being able to use the divine sense and soul consolidation method. When Fen Tian used the soul-killing storm, it could only forcibly endure it. However, this was not important. The current Tang Huan had a complete method to heal its soul. Tang Huan, that sharp spiritual fire is coming out soon. Suddenly, Feng Ming anxiously shouted out. Alright. At the same time, Tang Huan also felt that sharp and somber aura which was emitting from the Danshan. He turned his eyes and looked at Fen Tian again. After the sharp spiritual fire had been fused by Fen Tian, it was like a moth trapped in a cocoon. Now, with Fen Tian's soul destroyed, the sharp spiritual fire would immediately separate from it and break out of the cocoon. Right now, Tang Huan had already achieved his first goal in coming to Abyss City. As long as he could fuse with the sharp spiritual fire, his second goal would be accomplished. Feng Ming, Zhao Butian and Zhao Ai held their breath. Tang Huan did not even blink his eyes as he stared at Fen Tian's Danshan. The rise and fall of the small piece was getting more and more intense. The white light that was being revealed also became more and more dazzling, and the sharp aura and killing intent that was being emitted also increased. After around 10 breaths of time, a ball of white, extremely condensed flame suddenly shot out from Fen Tian's lower abdomen. Tang Huan's eyes slightly focused, and under his great effort, the blazing flame immediately poured down from his 2 palms, quickly enveloping that small ball of white fire. Chapter 640, White Robe. In an instant, the sharp spiritual fire was like a caged beast that frantically struggled, wanting to break free from the Nirvana sacred fire. However, the spiritual fire had only been successfully merged by Fen Tian not too long ago, and it had only recently separated from Fen Tian, so it was at its weakest moment. Furthermore, its edges had already been sharpened by Fen Tian, so under Tang Huan's suppression, its struggles naturally had no effect. Not long after, the Nirvana sacred fire wrapped around the ball of white flames, and it calmed down. Tang Huan immediately sat cross-legged, his face revealing a slight smile. Amongst the 4 spiritual fires he had already obtained, this sharp spiritual fire was perhaps the easiest one to fuse with, and all of this was thanks to Fen Tian. If Fen Tian had not fused with it first, just the power of wearing it down would have taken a lot of time and experience. In a moment of thought, Tang Huan closed his eyes and used all his strength to circulate his 9 Yang Divine Furnace and 5 colors spiritual pills. Seeing that, Feng Ming relaxed her mind, her red lips slightly opened, and a ball of blazing flame shot out, falling onto Fen Tian's body. In just a short while, the former master of the demon clan had turned into ashes, leaving behind only a dim blood-red greatsword. After taking care of Fen Tian, Feng Ming sat cross-legged near him. Zhao Butian and Zhao Ai also quietly squatted down, causing the heavenly devil cave to instantly become so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Inside the cave, the light was shining brightly. Outside the Abyss City, the sky had turned from bright to dark, and from dark to bright. Unknowingly, the next morning, 1 day and 1 night passed, and the Abyss City underwent a drastic change. Tang Huan and the others had been living in the Demon Clan for a long time, so the shock they brought to the people of Demon Clan could not be described with words. Especially during the big battle between Tang Huan and the Heavenly Devil Cave, a few brave Demon Clansmen had tried to find out about it outside the cave, but the final result they found out was that Fen Tian was most likely already dead. When the news spread out, everyone in Demon Clan was terrified. The Demon Lord Fen Tian had accumulated a lot of prestige and influence in his heart. Being killed by someone, to the Demon Clansmen, was equivalent to having the sky and earth collapse. Even those stubborn people who refused to move did not dare to delay any longer. They all rushed out of the cave and left the Abyss City. Thus, when the vanguard troops of the Tian Clan and the human allied forces rushed over, what they saw was an empty city. Just then, in the Heavenly Devil Cave, Tang Huan heaved a long sigh of relief, slowly opened his eyes. His face had a pleasantly surprised smile. Within the Danshan's 9 Yang Divine Furnace, the flames that had fused with the Flame Heart had already reached 4 blobs. The integration of the sharp spiritual fire gave Tang Huan a huge improvement, especially in the area of flesh body, which greatly exceeded Tang Huan's expectations. Currently, Tang Huan's spiritual meridian had nearly doubled in size. This meant that Tang Huan's speed of activating the genuine qi would be even faster. Not only could it greatly increase Tang Huan's cultivation speed, when fighting with the enemy, the battle skill would also be able to display an even stronger power. In addition, the increase in flesh body had also caused Tang Huan's sun spirit body to be even stronger. Before Tang Huan had fused with the sharp spiritual fire, he had never imagined such a change. Previously, when he was fusing Bodhisattva fire and Xuanming initial fire, although Tang Huan had improved, the degree of increase in his cultivation was absolutely incomparable to how it was now. Truthfully speaking, even when he was fusing with the Nirvana sacred fire, Tang Huan had never experienced such a metamorphosis. Perhaps it's because the 5 elements of the physique are metal. Tang Huan felt the changes in his body, and this thought uncontrollably flashed across his mind. If not for his physique, he would not be able to explain the current situation. With that thought, Tang Huan immediately activated Heavenly Domain. Almost at the same time the 5 colors odor gushed out from his body. Tang Huan's heart surged with an ecstatic feeling. In that instant, he realized that his control over the heavenly domain had suddenly become more powerful than ever before. After allowing the heavenly domain to expand to its limits, with a thought from Tang Huan, the heavenly domain started to shrink. In an instant, it shrunk from 100 meters around him to only a few meters around him. Although the scope of the heavenly domain had been reduced, Tang Huan's perception ability did not decrease in size and instead increased in size. For a moment, Tang Huan could not help but be excited. However, not long after, Tang Huan's heart sensed something. He suddenly changed his expression and leaped up, looking towards the right in the blink of an eye. He simultaneously shouted, "Who is it? Come out." He was staring at an empty place, not even a fly, let alone a human. Feng Ming woke up from her stupor and stood up abruptly. A look of surprise flashed across her beautiful eyes. "Tang Huan, who else is in this heavenly devil cave?" "Yeah, Gugu." Zhao Budian and Zhao Ai also jumped up and followed Tang Huan's gaze in surprise. Tang Huan was also quite suspicious. When he was activating the heavenly domain, he had used his perception ability to its fullest potential and was indeed able to sense a trace of aura from that direction. It almost felt like it was a heavenly domain level expert that was stronger than Fen Tian. But strangely, looking back, there was no one in that direction. Could it be that that person had invisible powers? His lips moved slightly. Just as Tang Huan was about to speak, a vigorous laugh resounded in the heavenly devil cave. Tang Huan, Feng Ming, and even Zhao Budian and Zhao Ai were all shocked. A few dozen meters away, a faint figure quickly separated from the void. In the blink of an eye, it had condensed into reality. It was a white-haired old man in a white robe. Although he wasn't tall, he was thin and had an air of immortality. "Kid, we finally meet." The white-robed old man suddenly laughed. "May I know who Senior is?" Seeing the old man's appearance, Tang Huan heaved a sigh of relief. But he did not let his guard down. He had originally thought that the heavenly domain level expert that had appeared in the heavenly devil cave was most likely some hidden demon clansman, but when the white-robed elder appeared, Tang Huan already knew that he was not a demon clan ranker, at least not a pure-blood demon clan ranker. Furthermore, Tang Huan did not feel any hostility from the other party. But even so, that did not mean that the other party would not act against him. Furthermore, Tang Huan was currently suspicious of the old man's words. From what he had said just now, the other party had already known of his existence. The reason he had appeared in the heavenly devil cave this time was most likely because of him.